Hello, and welcome. It's good that you're here, settling in wherever you are, letting the day begin to fade behind you. Perhaps you're tired. Perhaps your mind has been moving quickly, full of tasks and thoughts and the endless hum of things that needed doing. That's all right. You don't need to do anything now. You can simply rest here and listen and let your thoughts slow down like leaves drifting onto still water. Tonight, we're going to explore something quiet and beautiful, something that lives all around us, woven into the fabric of the world itself. We're going to talk about symmetry, the gentle, repeating patterns that nature builds into her structures, from the smallest crystal to the largest galaxy, from the curve of a nautilus shell to the branching of your own lungs. Symmetry is everywhere, patient and calm, asking nothing of us, simply existing in its perfect, balanced way. If you'd like to follow along on more journeys like this one, you're welcome to stay a while. But there's no pressure, no urgency. Just rest. Let's begin. Symmetry, at its heart, is a kind of balance. It's when one part of something mirrors another part, or when a pattern repeats in a way that feels complete and whole. And nature, in her quiet wisdom, has been building symmetrical structures for billions of years, long before humans ever noticed or gave it a name. These patterns aren't accidents. They emerge from the fundamental laws of physics, from the way molecules fit together, from the way energy flows and settles into the most stable, most efficient forms. When you look at a butterfly resting on a flower, wings folded or spread wide, you're seeing bilateral symmetry, the left side mirroring the right. This kind of symmetry is one of the most common in the animal kingdom, and it tells a story about movement and balance. Creatures that move through space, that need to navigate forward, benefit from having matching sides. It helps them stay balanced, helps them steer, helps them move efficiently through air or water or across the ground. The butterfly doesn't think about this, of course. It simply is perfectly balanced, perfectly itself. Bilateral symmetry appears in you, too. Your body, like the butterfly's, is built along a central line. Your left hand mirrors your right. Your eyes are paired. Your lungs sit on either side of your heart. This symmetry developed over hundreds of millions of years of evolution, refined and perfected through countless generations. It's a design that works, that allows for coordination and grace, that lets you reach and walk and turn your head to follow the path of a bird across the sky. But bilateral symmetry is just one kind. There are others, equally beautiful, equally calming in their order. Radial symmetry, for instance, is the pattern of a wheel, of spokes radiating from a center point. Sea stars have this kind of symmetry, their 5 arms reaching outward in all directions. So do jellyfish, drifting through the ocean with their bell-shaped bodies and trailing tentacles arranged in a perfect circle. Radial symmetry suits creatures that don't move in one particular direction. They need to sense their environment equally from all sides. Imagine a sea anemone, anchored to a rock beneath the waves, its tentacles waving gently in the current. It doesn't have a front or a back. Not really. It has a center, and everything radiates from that center, ready to catch whatever food the ocean brings from any direction. This is a different kind of life, a different kind of balance, but it's no less perfect, no less suited to its purpose. Flowers, too, often display radial symmetry. Think of a daisy, its white petals arranged in a circle around a yellow center. Or a wild rose, 5 petals evenly spaced, each one the same shape and size as its neighbors. This symmetry isn't just beautiful to our eyes, it serves a function. It makes the flower visible from many angles, helps pollinators find it, guides bees and butterflies and hummingbirds toward the nectar at the center. The flower doesn't try to be symmetrical. It simply grows that way, following instructions written in its genes, instructions refined over millennia of interaction with the insects and birds that help it reproduce. Even in the geometry of a single petal, there is symmetry. The veins that carry water and nutrients branch in patterns that repeat, smaller and smaller, like the tributaries of a river system. This branching pattern is another kind of symmetry, one that repeats across different scales. It's called fractal symmetry, and it's one of nature's most elegant solutions to the problem of distribution, how to get resources from one place to many places efficiently. Your own body uses fractal patterns. Your circulatory system branches from large arteries to smaller arterioles to tiny capillaries, reaching every cell in your body. Your respiratory system does the same, branching from your trachea to bronchi to bronchioles to the millions of tiny air sacs in your lungs where oxygen enters your blood. These branching patterns maximize surface area while minimizing the space they take up. They're efficient, elegant, and deeply symmetrical in their repetition. Trees grow in fractal patterns too. A trunk splits into branches, and each branch splits into smaller branches, and those split into twigs, and the twigs into the finest stems that hold the leaves. If you look at a bare tree in winter against a gray sky, you can see this pattern clearly, the way it repeats at every level. The same forking logic from the largest limb to the smallest twig. And the roots below ground mirror this pattern, branching and reaching through the soil in search of water and nutrients. There's something deeply calming about fractals, about patterns that repeat at different scales. Perhaps it's because they remind us that the same simple rules can create infinite complexity. A tree doesn't need a different set of instructions for each branch. It needs only one instruction: grow, split, repeat, and the pattern emerges naturally, beautifully, inevitably. Snowflakes are another kind of natural symmetry, and they've fascinated people for centuries. Each snowflake has six-fold radial symmetry, 6 arms radiating from a central point, each arm branching in delicate, intricate patterns. No two snowflakes are exactly alike, or so the saying goes. And while that's difficult to prove absolutely, it's likely true. The conditions a snowflake experiences as it falls through the atmosphere, the temperature, the humidity, the air currents, affect how it grows. And since no two snowflakes follow exactly the same path, each one develops its own unique pattern. But here's what's remarkable. Even though each snowflake is unique, all 6 arms of a single snowflake are nearly identical to each other. They grow together, experiencing the same conditions at the same time, so they develop in synchrony. This is symmetry emerging from shared experience, from the laws of crystal growth, from the way water molecules bond to each other at certain angles. It's chemistry and physics creating art, creating structure, creating beauty that no one designed, but that simply arises from the nature of matter itself. The 6-fold symmetry of snowflakes comes from the molecular structure of ice. Water molecules, when they freeze, arrange themselves in a hexagonal lattice. Each molecule bonds to 4 others in a way that creates angles of 120 degrees, and this geometry repeats and builds upon itself, creating the 6-sided symmetry we see in every ice crystal, every snowflake, every frost pattern on a winter window. Crystals in general are studies in symmetry. A crystal is matter in its most ordered state, atoms or molecules arranged in repeating patterns that extend in 3 dimensions. Salt crystals are cubic, their atoms arranged in perfect right angles, stacking into the tiny cubes you can sometimes see if you look closely at table salt. Quartz crystals are hexagonal. They're long, clear prisms terminating in 6-sided pyramids. Each type of crystal has its own characteristic symmetry, determined by the way its constituent atoms or molecules prefer to fit together. When a crystal grows, it doesn't have a plan or a blueprint. It simply adds atoms or molecules one at a time, each new addition finding the spot where it fits most stably, where the electrical forces balance, where the energy is lowest. And because the underlying structure is symmetrical, The growing crystal maintains that symmetry, building outward in all directions according to the same rules, creating faces and angles that reflect the hidden order within. There's something meditative about thinking of crystals growing deep underground, in darkness and silence, over thousands or millions of years. A cavity in the rock, filled with mineral-rich water. The water slowly evaporating or cooling, the minerals coming out of solution, settling onto the walls of the cavity, atom by atom, layer by layer, building structures of perfect geometric order. No one watches. No one hurries the process. The crystal simply grows, patient and inevitable, a monument to the power of symmetry in time. Honeycombs are another marvel of natural symmetry. Bees build their combs from wax, creating thousands of hexagonal cells that fit together with almost no wasted space. The hexagon is an ideal shape for this purpose. It tiles perfectly. Hexagons can cover a flat surface with no gaps, unlike circles, which leave spaces between them. And of all the shapes that tile perfectly, the hexagon uses the least perimeter to enclose a given area, which means the bees use the least wax to create the most storage space. It's efficient, elegant, and beautiful. The bees don't calculate this, of course. They don't know geometry. They simply build, following instincts honed over millions of years of evolution. Each bee works on her own cell, but the collective result is a structure of remarkable regularity and symmetry. The cells are all nearly the same size, all oriented in the same direction, all fitting together in a continuous pattern. It's an example of emergent order, complexity arising from simple rules followed by many individuals. This kind of emergent symmetry appears throughout nature. Flocks of birds wheeling across the sky, each bird following simple rules about staying close to its neighbors and matching their speed and direction. And the result is a flowing, shifting pattern that looks choreographed but isn't. Schools of fish moving as one, turning together, the whole group seeming to act like a single organism. Symmetry and pattern emerging from the bottom up, from local interactions, from simple rules repeated many times. Even at the molecular level, symmetry is fundamental. Proteins, the workhorses of your cells, fold into specific three-dimensional shapes, and many of these shapes have symmetrical elements. Hemoglobin, the protein that carries oxygen in your blood, has 4 subunits arranged symmetrically. Many viruses have icosahedral symmetry, 20 triangular faces arranged in a pattern that's both efficient and strong. This symmetry isn't decorative. It's functional, allowing the molecules to assemble correctly, to perform their tasks, to interact with other molecules in precise ways. DNA itself has symmetry. The double helix is a spiral, and spirals are a form of symmetry called helical or rotational symmetry. If you rotate a spiral around its axis and move along it at the same time, it looks the same. DNA's 2 strands wind around each other in this elegant spiral, held together by pairs of bases, adenine with thymine, guanine with cytosine, each pair matching its partner in a complementary way. This pairing is itself a kind of symmetry, a molecular mirror, and it's what allows DNA to replicate, each strand serving as a template for a new partner strand. The spiral appears again and again in nature. Snail shells grow in logarithmic spirals, each new chamber slightly larger than the last, but maintaining the same proportional relationship. The nautilus shell, sliced open, reveals a perfect spiral of chambers, each one sealed off as the nautilus grew and built a new, larger home for itself. This spiral follows what's called the golden ratio, a mathematical proportion that appears frequently in nature and has fascinated mathematicians and artists for centuries. The golden ratio is approximately 1.618, and it's the ratio you get when you divide a line so that the whole length divided by the longer part equals the longer part divided by the shorter part. It's a proportion that seems to please the human eye, and it shows up in the spiral of a nautilus, the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower, the branching of trees, the proportions of the human body. It's a kind of symmetry that involves growth and proportion, a pattern that repeats not in space, but in scale. Sunflowers are particularly fascinating. The seeds in the center of sunflower head arrange themselves in two sets of spirals, one curving clockwise, the other counterclockwise. If you count the number of spirals in each direction, you'll often find numbers from the Fibonacci sequence, a series where each number is the sum of the two before it. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, and so on. The ratio between consecutive Fibonacci numbers approaches the golden ratio as the numbers get larger. Why would a sunflower use Fibonacci numbers and the golden ratio? It's about packing efficiency. As the sunflower grows, it produces new seeds at the center, and each new seed needs to find a spot. If the seeds were arranged in simple radial lines, there would be gaps and crowding. But if each new seed is placed at an angle related to the golden ratio from the previous seed, they pack together with remarkable efficiency, filling the space evenly, minimizing gaps, maximizing the number of seeds the sunflower can produce. It's an optimization that evolution discovered long before humans invented mathematics. This same spiral pattern appears in pinecones, in pineapples, in the arrangement of leaves around a stem. It's called phyllotaxis, the study of how plants arrange their parts, and it's governed by the same mathematical principles, the same drive toward efficiency and optimal use of space and light. A plant arranges its leaves so that each one gets maximum sunlight without being shaded too much by the leaves above it. The result is often a spiral pattern, leaves placed at regular angular intervals around the stem, creating a symmetry that's both beautiful and functional. Galaxies, too, spiral. Our own Milky Way is a spiral galaxy, with arms of stars and gas, and dust curving out from a dense central bulge. These arms aren't solid structures. They're density waves, regions where stars and gas are temporarily more crowded together. As the galaxy rotates, these waves persist, creating the spiral pattern we see. Other galaxies have different symmetries. Some are elliptical, their stars distributed in a smooth, symmetric oval. Some are irregular, lacking clear symmetry, often because they've been disturbed by collisions or interactions with other galaxies. The symmetry of galaxies tells us about their history, about how they formed and evolved. A smooth, symmetric galaxy likely had a quiet history, growing gradually, undisturbed. An irregular galaxy has likely experienced violence, collisions, tidal forces that disrupted its structure. Symmetry, or the lack of it, is a record written in stars, a story we can read if we know how to look. Even the universe itself, on the largest scales, shows a kind of symmetry. The cosmic microwave background, the faint glow of radiation left over from the Big Bang, is remarkably uniform in all directions. There are tiny variations, small differences in temperature from one part of the sky to another, but overall, the universe looks the same in every direction. This is called isotropy, and it's a form of symmetry. It suggests that the universe, on the largest scales, is homogeneous and isotropic, the same everywhere and in every direction. This large-scale symmetry is one of the foundations of modern cosmology. It tells us that the laws of physics are the same everywhere, that the universe doesn't have a special center or a preferred direction. It's a symmetry of space itself, a deep and fundamental order underlying all the complexity and structure we see. But let's come back down to Earth, back to the human scale, to the symmetries we can see and touch. Consider the human face. We find symmetrical faces attractive, and there's likely an evolutionary reason for this. Symmetry in a face suggests good health, good genes, proper development. Asymmetries can be signs of disease, injury, or genetic problems. So our brains are tuned to notice symmetry, to prefer it, to find it beautiful. But perfect symmetry in a face is rare, and perhaps a little unsettling. Most faces have subtle asymmetries. One eye slightly higher than the other, one side of the mouth a bit different from the other. These small imperfections give character, individuality. They're part of what makes each face unique. So we're drawn to symmetry, but we also appreciate the subtle deviations from it, the small variations that make each person themselves. Architecture often uses symmetry to create a sense of order and calm. Classical buildings, temples, palaces, cathedrals, many are designed with bilateral symmetry, a central axis with matching elements on either side. This symmetry creates balance, stability, a feeling that the structure is solid and enduring. It's no accident that buildings meant to inspire awe or convey power often use symmetry prominently. But nature's symmetry is rarely perfect. A tree may branch symmetrically on average, but each branch is a little different, responding to local conditions. More growth toward the light, less where space is limited. A starfish may have 5 arms, but they're not exactly the same length or shape. A butterfly's wings may mirror each other, but there are always small differences, tiny variations in the pattern of scales, and the exact shape of the wing edge. This approximate symmetry, this symmetry with variation, is part of what makes natural structures so pleasing to look at. Perfect mathematical symmetry can feel cold, sterile, artificial. Nature's symmetry is warm, organic, alive. It's symmetry with a story, symmetry shaped by growth and environment, and the accumulated effects of countless small events. Water, in its movement, creates symmetrical patterns. Ripples spreading from a dropped stone form perfect concentric circles, each one a ring of symmetry expanding outward. Waves on the ocean have a rhythmic symmetry, crests and troughs repeating in space and time. The patterns of sand on a beach, shaped by waves, show ripple marks that are nearly periodic, nearly symmetrical, a record of the water's motion frozen in the sand. Even turbulence, which seems chaotic, has hidden symmetries. Eddies and vortices in flowing water or air often have rotational symmetry, spinning structures that repeat their form as they rotate. The swirl of water draining from a sink, the spiral of a tornado, the vortices that peel off the wingtips of a flying bird. All of these have symmetry in their rotation, in their structure. Sound waves have symmetry in time. A pure musical tone is a sine wave, a pattern that repeats over and over, the same shape again and again. This temporal symmetry is what makes the tone sound steady, consistent, pure. More complex sounds are combinations of many sine waves, many frequencies, but the underlying principle is the same. Patterns repeating in time, symmetries in the dimension of duration rather than space. Your heartbeat has a rhythm, a temporal pattern. It's not perfectly regular. It varies slightly from beat to beat, responding to your breathing, your activity, your emotions, but it has an overall periodicity, a symmetry in time that keeps you alive. The same is true of your breathing, the cycles of inhalation and exhalation, a rhythm that continues, mostly unconsciously, every moment of your life. Circadian rhythms are another temporal symmetry. Your body runs on a roughly 24-hour cycle, synchronized to the rotation of the Earth, to the cycle of day and night. Your body temperature rises and falls. Your alertness waxes and wanes. Your hormone levels shift, all following this daily rhythm. It's a symmetry built into your biology, a pattern that repeats day after day, year after year. The seasons are a temporal symmetry on a longer scale. Spring, summer, autumn, winter, and back to spring again, each year following the same pattern, driven by the tilt of Earth's axis and our planet's orbit around the sun. This cycle has shaped life on Earth, creating rhythms of growth and dormancy, migration and hibernation, flowering and fruiting. Even the phases of the moon follow a symmetrical cycle. New moon to full moon and back to new, a period of about 29.5 days, repeating endlessly. This cycle has influenced human cultures for millennia, shaping calendars, festivals, stories. It's a visible, reliable pattern in the night sky, a reminder that the cosmos has order, has rhythms, has symmetries we can observe and predict. Tides, driven by the moon's gravity, rise and fall in a regular rhythm, a temporal symmetry that coastal life depends on. Creatures in the intertidal zone time their activities to the tides, feeding when the tide is in, sheltering when it's out. It's a rhythm that connects the ocean to the sky, the earth to the moon, a symmetry that spans hundreds of thousands of kilometers of space. Crystals, as they grow, sometimes develop facets that are mirror images of each other. This is called twinning, and it happens when two crystals grow together in a symmetrical arrangement, sharing a common plane or axis. The result is a crystal that has extra symmetry, a doubling of the pattern, a structure more complex and often more beautiful than a single crystal alone. Some minerals always twin in characteristic ways. Gypsum often forms swallowtail twins, two crystals joined at an angle, their edges flaring out like the tail feathers of a bird. Staurolite, a reddish-brown mineral, forms crosses, two crystals intersecting at right angles. These crosses were once carried as good luck charms, natural symbols of symmetry and faith found in the rocks. Even the symmetry of a crystal can tell geologists about the conditions under which it formed. High-symmetry crystals, with many axes of rotation and mirror planes, typically form at high temperatures, where atoms have more freedom to move and arrange themselves in the most stable, most symmetrical configuration. Lower symmetry crystals can form at lower temperatures or under stress, where the atoms are more constrained, less able to achieve perfect order. Minerals aren't the only crystals in nature. Ice, as we've mentioned, is a crystal. So is the cellulose in plant cell walls, arranged in a crystalline structure that gives wood and plant fibers their strength. Even your bones have a crystalline component, hydroxyapatite, a calcium phosphate mineral that grows in tiny crystals within the organic matrix of collagen. These crystals give your bones their hardness, their ability to support your weight and withstand impact. The symmetry in these biological crystals is less perfect than in pure minerals. Biology is messy, working at body temperature, in water, with organic molecules that don't always fit together perfectly. But the underlying order is still there, the repeating patterns, the symmetries that give structure and function to living tissues. Spider webs are marvels of radial symmetry. An orb web has radial threads extending from a central hub, like the spokes of a wheel, and spiral threads connecting them, creating a pattern that's both strong and efficient. The spider starts at the center and works outward, laying down the radial threads first, then spiraling inward to create the sticky capture spiral. The result is a structure that can catch flying insects, absorb the impact without breaking, and signal the spider when prey is caught. The symmetry of the web isn't just beautiful, it's functional. The radial threads carry the load, distributing the stress of an impact. The spiral threads provide redundancy, so if one breaks, the web still functions. And the overall pattern maximizes the area covered while minimizing the amount of silk needed. Silk is costly for the spider to produce, so efficiency matters. Symmetry, once again, is nature's solution to an engineering problem. Not all spider webs are symmetrical, though. Some spiders build tangled, irregular webs, three-dimensional structures with no obvious pattern. Others build sheet webs, flat platforms with a tangle of threads above to knock down flying insects. Each design is adapted to the spider's hunting strategy, to the environment where it lives, to the type of prey it catches. Symmetry is one tool in nature's toolbox, but it's not the only one. Lichens, those strange partnerships between fungi and algae or cyanobacteria, often grow in circular patterns, expanding outward from a central point. A lichen starts from a single spore or fragment, and it grows radially, spreading in all directions at roughly the same rate. The result is a circular patch, a simple radial symmetry. Some lichens grow very slowly, just a millimeter or two per year, so a large circular lichen might be decades or even centuries old. The growth rings in a tree trunk are another form of radial symmetry. Each year, the tree adds a new layer of wood, a ring that circles the trunk. In temperate climates, where there's a distinct growing season, these rings are clearly visible, alternating light and dark wood. The light wood forms in spring, when growth is rapid. The dark wood forms in late summer, when growth slows. By counting the rings, you can determine the tree's age. By measuring their width, you can learn about the climate each year. Wide rings in good years with plenty of water, narrow rings in drought years. These rings are a record, a symmetrical archive written in wood, a story of seasons and years and the slow, patient growth of a living thing. When you look at a cross-section of a tree trunk, you're looking at time made visible, at symmetry in the dimension of duration, at the intersection of biology and history. Fossils sometimes preserve symmetry from millions of years ago. Trilobites, ancient arthropods that lived in the oceans for nearly 300 million years, had bilateral symmetry, a head, thorax, and tail, the body divided into 3 lobes running from front to back. Their fossils are common in certain rocks, and their symmetrical forms are instantly recognizable. They're a reminder that symmetry is ancient, that the same principles that shape living things today also shaped life in the distant past. Ammonites, extinct relatives of squids and octopuses, had shells that coiled in logarithmic spirals, just like nautilus shells. These spirals are preserved in the rocks, sometimes beautifully, the chambers still visible, the symmetry still clear even after hundreds of millions of years. The shell protected the ammonite in life, and in death, it became a tomb, a mold, a space that filled with sediment and eventually turned to stone, preserving the creature's form for us to find and wonder at. Even in extinction, symmetry endures. The patterns persist, written in stone, testaments to the power and universality of nature's geometric principles. Coral reefs, built by countless tiny polyps, each one with radial symmetry, create structures of immense complexity. Each coral polyp is a small, soft-bodied animal, related to sea anemones and jellyfish, with a ring of tentacles around a central mouth. The polyp secretes calcium carbonate, building a hard skeleton around itself. As the colony grows, polyps bud and divide, creating a structure that can take many forms: branching, mounding, plate-like, encrusting, but often with underlying symmetries, patterns that repeat, structures that reflect the modular, repetitive growth of the colony. A coral reef is a city built by symmetry, by millions of small, radially symmetrical animals working over centuries or millennia, creating habitats for thousands of other species. It's an ecosystem founded on geometric order, on the simple, repeated form of the polyp, scaled up to create one of the most diverse and productive environments on Earth. Diatoms, microscopic algae that float in the ocean and in freshwater, have cell walls made of silica, glass-like structures of remarkable intricacy and beauty. Many diatoms have radial symmetry, circular forms with patterns of pores, spines, and ridges radiating from the center. Others have bilateral symmetry, elongated forms with matching halves. Under a microscope, diatoms look like tiny jewels, like intricate glass sculptures, each species with its own distinctive symmetry, its own pattern. There are tens of thousands of species of diatoms, and they're incredibly abundant. They produce about a quarter of the oxygen on Earth through photosynthesis, more than all the rainforests combined. These tiny, symmetrical organisms, invisible to the naked eye, are among the most important life forms on the planet. Symmetry and significance, beauty and function, all combined in a microscopic package. Radiolarians are another group of microscopic organisms, single-celled protists with intricate skeletons made of silica or strontium sulfate. Their skeletons often have radial symmetry, with spines and lattices radiating from a central point in 3 dimensions, creating structures of stunning complexity. Like diatoms, radiolarians are beautiful under the microscope, and their fossilized skeletons can accumulate on the ocean floor, forming sediments called radiolarian ooze. These tiny symmetrical skeletons, settling through the water, drifting down through kilometers of ocean, coming to rest on the abyssal plains, are part of the great cycle of matter on Earth. They're a reminder that symmetry exists at every scale, from the cosmic to the microscopic, and that even the smallest structures can have profound effects on the planet as a whole. Viruses, though not alive in the traditional sense, have symmetrical structures. Many viruses are icosahedral, a 20-phase shape that's one of the platonic solids, the most symmetrical 3-dimensional forms possible. This symmetry allows the virus to assemble efficiently from many identical protein subunits, creating a protective shell for its genetic material. The symmetry is both elegant and functional, a solution to the problem of building a container from limited genetic instructions. Bacteriophages, viruses that infect bacteria, often have even more complex symmetry. They have an icosahedral head, a helical tail, and tail fibers, combining different types of symmetry in one structure. They look like tiny lunar landers, geometric and precise, built by evolution to inject their DNA into bacterial cells. It's a form that follows function, and the symmetry is part of what makes them work. Even in the realm of disease, of infection, of things we often fear, there's order, there's pattern, there's symmetry. Understanding these patterns helps us fight disease, develop vaccines, protect ourselves. Symmetry isn't just beautiful. It's informative. It's useful. It's a key to understanding how the natural world works. Eggs are often symmetrical. A bird's egg is roughly elliptical, a form that's strong and efficient, able to withstand pressure from outside without breaking. The shape is a compromise between strength, volume, and the need to fit through the bird's body when it's laid. Some birds lay nearly spherical eggs. Others lay elongated, pointed eggs. The shape often relates to where the bird nests. Birds that nest on narrow ledges lay more pointed eggs, which roll in a circle rather than off the edge. The egg symmetry is broken when the chick develops inside. What starts as a uniform, symmetrical structure becomes organized, differentiated, with a head end and a tail end, a top and a bottom. Symmetry breaking is a fundamental process in development. It's how a fertilized egg, a single symmetrical cell, becomes a complex, asymmetrical organism with different organs and structures. But even as the overall symmetry breaks, local symmetries remain. The chick develops bilateral symmetry, a left side and a right side. Its organs develop in predictable positions, often with their own symmetries. The process is a dance between symmetry and asymmetry, between order and differentiation, between the general plan and the specific individual. Your own development followed this pattern. You started as a single cell, roughly spherical, with no obvious asymmetry. But within hours, that symmetry began to break. The cell divided, and the divisions created an axis, a direction. Cells began to differentiate, to take on different roles. Layers formed, structures emerged, and gradually, over weeks and months, a human form took shape, bilaterally symmetrical on the outside, with asymmetries inside, your heart on the left, your liver on the right, your stomach and spleen tucked in on the left side. This combination of symmetry and asymmetry is part of what makes you you. The symmetry gives you balance, coordination, a body plan that works. The asymmetry allows for specialization, for organs to fit together efficiently in the limited space of your body cavity, for your heart to pump effectively, for your intestines to coil and pack into your abdomen. Leaves, as they unfold from a bud, often show bilateral symmetry, a central vein with matching halves on either side. But look closely, and you'll see that the symmetry is rarely perfect. One half might be slightly larger, the edge slightly different, the veins not quite matching. These small asymmetries are the result of growth, of the leaf responding to its environment as it develops, of small random variations in cell division and expansion. Yet the overall impression is one of symmetry, of order, of a plan being followed. And that's one of the comforting things about natural symmetry. It's robust, it's tolerant of small errors. It doesn't require perfection to be effective or beautiful. Feathers have a central shaft with barbs branching off on either side, a form of bilateral symmetry. But in many feathers, especially flight feathers, the two sides aren't the same width. The leading edge of the feather, the edge that cuts through the air, is narrower and stiffer. The trailing edge is wider and more flexible. This asymmetry is functional. It helps the feather generate lift, helps the bird fly more efficiently. So even in structures that appear symmetrical, there are often subtle asymmetries that serve important purposes. Nature is full of these nuances, these details that reveal deeper layers of function and adaptation. Symmetry is a starting point, a framework, but evolution refines it, tweaks it, breaks it when necessary, always in service of survival and reproduction. Clouds, though they seem chaotic, sometimes show symmetrical features. Lenticular clouds, which form in the lee of mountains, can have a smooth, lens-like shape, a form that's roughly symmetrical. They form when moist air is lifted over a mountain, cools, and condenses into a cloud, then descends and warms, evaporating again. If the conditions are just right, this creates a standing wave in the atmosphere, and the cloud marks the crest of the wave, a symmetrical shape hovering in the sky, seemingly motionless even as the wind blows through it. Mammatus clouds, which sometimes form under thunderstorms, have a pouched appearance, bulges hanging down from the cloud base. These pouches often form in regular patterns, a kind of approximate symmetry, rows of bulges that repeat across the sky. They form when pockets of cold air sink through the cloud, creating the distinctive pouch texture. They are rare and striking, and their symmetry, though not perfect, is part of what makes them so visually arresting. Lightning, in its branching, shows a fractal-like structure, a pattern that repeats at different scales. The main bolt splits into smaller branches, and those split again, creating a tree-like pattern that reaches from cloud to ground in a fraction of a second. This branching is a result of the way electricity seeks the path of least resistance through the air, ionizing the air as it goes, creating a conductive channel. The pattern is chaotic in detail, but has a statistical symmetry, a similarity across scales. Even in the violence of a thunderstorm, in the sudden, explosive release of energy, there's pattern, there's structure, there's a kind of order. Rainbows are arcs of color, and an arc is a symmetrical curve. The rainbow's center is always directly opposite the sun from your viewpoint, and the arc is part of a circle centered on that point. If you're high enough, in an airplane for instance, you can sometimes see a full circular rainbow, a complete ring of color, perfectly symmetrical. The rainbow is caused by sunlight refracting and reflecting inside raindrops, and the geometry of that process creates the circular symmetry we see. The colors of the rainbow always appear in the same order. red on the outside, violet on the inside, because different wavelengths of light refract at slightly different angles. This order is another kind of symmetry, a pattern that repeats every time conditions are right, a predictable sequence arising from the laws of optics and the properties of water and light. Halos around the sun or moon, caused by ice crystals in the atmosphere, also have circular symmetry. The most common halo is a ring 22 degrees from the sun or moon, created by light refracting through hexagonal ice crystals. Because the crystals have six-fold symmetry, and because they're randomly oriented as they fall through the air, the light is refracted in all directions equally, creating a circular halo. It's symmetry in the sky, a ring of light born from the geometry of ice and the physics of refraction. The symmetry we find in living things often tells a story of movement and survival. When a fish glides through water, its bilateral body cuts resistance evenly on both sides. The muscles work in mirror coordination, left answering right, creating a smooth undulation that propels the creature forward with minimal effort. This balance is not decorative. It is functional, born from millions of years of bodies testing themselves against the physics of fluid and the urgency of predators. Symmetry, in this way, becomes a solution written into flesh. And in the depths of the ocean, where light fades and pressure mounts, symmetry persists in forms that seem almost alien. The comb jelly drifts through darkness, its body organized around 8 rows of cilia that beat in coordinated waves. These rows are spaced evenly around its soft, translucent form, creating a radial symmetry that allows it to sense and respond to its environment from all directions. Each cilium catches faint bioluminescent light, refracting it into rainbows that ripple across the creature's surface. The symmetry here is not just structural, but also rhythmic, a pattern in time as much as in space. Jellyfish, too, embody this radial grace. Their bells pulse in perfect circular contraction, pushing water downward and lifting their bodies upward in a gentle, meditative rhythm. The tentacles hang in even distribution around the margin, each one a sensory thread capable of detecting chemical gradients and vibrations. This arrangement allows the jellyfish to feed and navigate without a brain, relying instead on a nerve net that processes information in a decentralized, symmetrical way. There is something deeply calming in this simplicity, in the idea that a creature can exist so successfully with such elegant geometry and so little complexity. On land, the symmetry of flowers serves a different purpose, one tied to communication. A daisy opens its petals in radial symmetry, each white ray extending outward from the golden center. Bees and butterflies, approaching from any angle, see the same inviting pattern. This uniformity is a signal, a visual shorthand that says, here is nectar, here is pollen, here is a place worth visiting. The symmetry makes the flower easier to recognize, easier to remember. In a meadow full of competing blooms, symmetry is a form of clarity, a way to stand out by being balanced. But not all flowers are radially symmetrical. Orchids, snapdragons, and sweet peas display bilateral symmetry, a single plane of reflection that gives them a face-like quality. This design often guides pollinators to land in a specific spot, ensuring that pollen is transferred with precision. The lower petal becomes a landing platform, the upper petal's a protective hood. The symmetry here is strategic, a collaboration between plant and insect, written in shape and color. It is a quiet partnership, refined over countless generations, and it works because both parties benefit from a geometry. Symmetry in plants extends beyond flowers into the architecture of leaves and branches. Many trees grow in patterns that approximate symmetry, though perfect balance is rare. A young sapling may send out branches in pairs, each pair rotated slightly from the one below, creating a spiral staircase of growth. This arrangement, called decussate phyllotaxis, ensures that each leaf receives sunlight without being shadowed by the one above it. The symmetry is not rigid but adaptive, responding to light, gravity, and the availability of space. It is a living geometry, always adjusting, always optimizing. Even the veins within a single leaf follow symmetrical branching patterns. From the central midrib, smaller veins extend outward in mirror image, dividing again and again into finer threads. This network distributes water and nutrients evenly across the leaf surface, ensuring that every cell has access to what it needs. The pattern is fractal, meaning it repeats at different scales, and it is also efficient, minimizing the distance any molecule must travel. When you hold a leaf up to the light, you see not just a shape, but a solution, a mathematical answer to the problem of distribution. The human hand, too, is a study in bilateral symmetry. Each finger on your right hand has a mirror on your left. The bones, muscles, tendons, and nerves are arranged in nearly identical fashion, allowing for coordinated tasks that require both hands working together. When you tie a knot or hold a cup, your brain sends symmetrical signals to symmetrical structures, and the result is a seamless collaboration. This mirroring extends throughout your body, from the hemispheres of your brain to the chambers of your heart, creating a sense of balance that is both physical and neurological. Yet the symmetry of the human body is not absolute. Your heart sits slightly left of center. Your liver occupies the right side of your abdomen, while your spleen rests on the left. These asymmetries are essential, allowing organs to fit together like pieces of a three-dimensional puzzle. The external symmetry of your body masks an internal landscape that is more pragmatic than poetic, shaped by the need to pack complex systems into a limited space. This blend of symmetry and asymmetry is a reminder that nature uses balance as a tool, not a rule. Insects, with their segmented bodies, display symmetry in layers. A beetle's exoskeleton is divided into sections, each one a mirror of its partner across the midline. The legs extend in 3 pairs, evenly spaced along the thorax, and the antennae reach forward in perfect bilateral arrangement. Even the compound eyes, made of thousands of tiny lenses, are symmetrical in placement and structure. This repetition of form allows the insect to move with precision, to sense its environment from multiple angles, and to protect itself with armor that distributes force evenly. The wings of a dragonfly are a marvel of symmetrical engineering. Each of the 4 wings is a transparent membrane stretched across a network of veins, and each vein branches in patterns that are nearly identical from one wing to the next. When the dragonfly hovers, the wings beat in coordinated phases, creating vortices of air that allow the insect to remain stationary or dart in any direction. The symmetry here is dynamic, a choreography of motion that depends on precise timing and balance. Watching a dragonfly hover is like watching a tiny helicopter, its rotors invisible but perfectly synchronized. Spiders weave webs that embody radial symmetry with remarkable consistency. An orb weaver begins at the center, spinning outward in a spiral, attaching each strand to radial threads that extend like spokes from the hub. The spacing between spirals is even, the tension carefully calibrated. This symmetry is not just beautiful, it is functional. The web must distribute the force of impact when prey strikes, preventing the silk from tearing. The radial design allows the spider to feel vibrations from any direction, alerting it to the location of a trapped insect. The web is both a trap and a sensory organ, and its symmetry is key to both roles. Coral polyps, tiny animals that build vast reefs, also display radial symmetry. Each polyp is a tube with a mouth surrounded by tentacles, usually in multiples of 6. The tentacles wave gently in the current, capturing plankton and drawing it toward the central mouth. Thousands of these polyps live side by side, each one identical in structure, each one contributing to the collective architecture of the reef. The symmetry of the individual is repeated across the colony, creating patterns that ripple outward in waves of living geometry. The nautilus shell is a spiral that grows according to a logarithmic pattern, each new chamber larger than the last by a constant ratio. This spiral is not symmetrical in the traditional sense, but it possesses a rotational symmetry, a self-similarity that repeats as the shell expands. The nautilus lives in the outermost chamber, sealing off the older, smaller chambers behind it. This growth pattern allows the shell to maintain its balance and buoyancy as the animal grows, a feat of engineering that has remained unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. The spiral is both a home and a history, a record of growth written in calcium carbonate. Ammonites, ancient relatives of the nautilus, also grew in spirals, and their fossilized shells reveal the same logarithmic elegance. These creatures lived in oceans that no longer exist, swimming through waters that covered continents now dry. The symmetry of their shells has survived the passage of deep time, preserved in stone, a testament to the durability of geometric principles. When you hold an ammonite fossil, you hold a shape that once solved the problem of life in an ancient sea, and the symmetry still feels fresh, still feels intentional. Symmetry appears in the microscopic world with equal clarity. Diatoms, single-celled algae encased in glass-like shells, display intricate patterns of radial and bilateral symmetry. Under a microscope, these shells reveal pores, ridges, and chambers arranged with astonishing regularity. Each species has its own signature pattern, a unique combination of symmetry and ornamentation. These tiny organisms drift in oceans and lakes, their symmetrical shells catching light, contributing to the shimmering quality of water. They are invisible to the naked eye, yet their beauty is no less real. Radiolarians, another group of microscopic organisms, build skeletons of silica in shapes that seem almost architectural. Spheres within spheres, spines radiating outward, lattices of geometric precision, all arranged with radial symmetry. These structures serve as both protection and buoyancy control, allowing the radiolarian to float at specific depths in the ocean. The symmetry is not arbitrary. It reflects the physical constraints of building a skeleton at such a small scale, where surface tension and molecular forces dominate. The result is a gallery of forms that look designed, though they are entirely natural. Pollen grains, too, are studies in symmetry. Each grain is a tiny package of genetic material, encased in a wall sculpted with species-specific patterns. Some are spherical with evenly spaced pores, others are elliptical with bilateral symmetry, and still others have threefold or sixfold radial designs. These patterns help scientists identify plant species, even from ancient pollen preserved in sediment. The symmetry serves a function. The pores are exit points for the pollen tube, which must grow toward the ovule during fertilization. The geometry ensures that no matter how the grain lands, a pore is available. Viruses, though not alive in the traditional sense, also exhibit symmetry. Many viruses are icosahedral, a 20-sided shape with perfect rotational symmetry. This geometry allows the virus to build a protective shell, called a capsid, from multiple copies of the same protein. The symmetry simplifies construction, requiring only a few genetic instructions to produce a complex, sturdy container for the viral genome. It is a solution born of constraint, a way to achieve maximum protection with minimal genetic investment. The elegance of viral symmetry is a reminder that even the smallest entities follow geometric rules. Crystals, as we touched upon earlier, are perhaps the purest expression of symmetry in nature. But beyond the familiar six-fold symmetry of snowflakes, crystals can display four-fold, threefold, and even fivefold symmetries, depending on the arrangement of their atoms. Pyrite, or fool's gold, often forms perfect cubes. Each face is square, each edge meeting at right angles. This cubic symmetry reflects the arrangement of iron and sulfur atoms in a repeating lattice. The crystal grows by adding layers, each one aligned with the underlying structure, and the result is a shape that looks carved by hand but is entirely self-assembled. Quartz crystals grow in hexagonal prisms, their faces meeting at precise angles dictated by the arrangement of silicon and oxygen atoms. The symmetry is not just external. It extends into the atomic lattice, where each atom occupies a position in a repeating three-dimensional grid. This internal order gives quartz its piezoelectric properties, meaning it generates a small electric charge when compressed. The symmetry, in this case, has practical consequences, making quartz useful in watches, sensors, and electronics. The beauty and the utility are inseparable. Bismuth, when crystallized from a melt, forms intricate staircase-like structures with right-angle turns and iridescent surfaces. The symmetry here is less about mirror images and more about repetition and layering. Each step is a crystal face, each face aligned with the atomic lattice beneath. The iridescence comes from a thin oxide layer that forms on the surface, refracting light into a spectrum of colors. The result is a structure that looks futuristic, almost artificial, yet it grows naturally whenever bismuth cools slowly enough to allow atoms to find their lowest energy positions. Symmetry also governs the shapes of bubbles and foams. A single soap bubble is a perfect sphere, the shape that minimizes surface area for a given volume. This symmetry is a direct consequence of surface tension, the tendency of liquid surfaces to contract. When bubbles cluster together, they form polyhedral shapes, meeting at angles of exactly 120 degrees. This arrangement, known as Plateau's laws, minimizes the total surface area of the foam. The symmetry is dynamic, shifting as bubbles merge or pop, but the underlying geometric principles remain constant. Even something as ephemeral as foam follows rules. Honeycombs, built by bees, are hexagonal arrays that tile the plane without gaps or overlaps. Each cell is a hexagonal prism, its walls shared with neighboring cells, minimizing the amount of wax needed. The symmetry is both local and global. Each cell is symmetrical, and the pattern as a whole is symmetrical. Bees do not calculate angles or measure distances. They simply build cells of a certain size, and the hexagonal pattern emerges naturally from the packing of circular cells that are then sculpted by heat and surface tension. The result is one of nature's most efficient structures, a testament to the power of simple rules applied consistently. The symmetry of a starfish extends beyond its 5 arms. Internally, each arm contains a radial canal connected to a central ring canal, part of the water vascular system that powers the starfish's tube feet. The system is hydraulic, using seawater to extend and retract the feet, allowing the starfish to move and manipulate objects. The fivefold symmetry is mirrored in the nervous system, the digestive system, and the reproductive system. The starfish is a living demonstration of radial organization, every system radiating outward from the center. Some starfish can regenerate lost arms, growing new ones from the central disc. In rare cases, a severed arm can regenerate an entire new starfish, provided it retains a portion of the central disc. This regeneration respects the original symmetry, rebuilding the missing parts according to the same fivefold plan. The process is slow, taking months or even years, but the final form is indistinguishable from the original. The symmetry acts as a blueprint, guiding the growth of new tissue into the correct configuration. Sea urchins, relatives of starfish, also display fivefold symmetry, though their bodies are more spherical. The shell, called a test, is covered in spines that radiate outward in evenly spaced rows. Beneath the spines, the test is composed of interlocking plates arranged in 10 columns, 5 pairs that alternate in a precise pattern. This symmetry extends to the internal organs, which are arranged around a central axis. The mouth, located on the underside, contains a complex chewing apparatus called Aristotle's lantern. It's self-symmetrical, with 5 teeth that scrape algae from rocks. Sand dollars, flattened relatives of sea urchins, retain the 5-fold symmetry in a more subtle form. The top surface of a sand dollar is marked with a petal-like pattern, 5 elongated grooves that radiate from the center. These grooves house specialized tube feet used for respiration. The symmetry is both functional and beautiful, a pattern that serves the animal's needs while also creating a design that humans find pleasing. Beachcombers collect sand dollars for their elegance, often without realizing that the pattern they admire is a map of the animal's respiratory system. The chambered nautilus, as it grows, maintains the symmetry of its spiral by secreting new shell material at a constant rate. The spiral is equiangular, meaning that the angle between the radius and the tangent is constant at every point. This creates a shape that expands outward while maintaining its proportions, a growth pattern that is both efficient and aesthetically pleasing. The symmetry is not mirror symmetry, but rotational symmetry, a pattern that repeats as you turn the shell around its axis. It is a different kind of balance, one that unfolds over time rather than space. Pinecones and pineapples display spiral patterns that interlock in 2 directions, creating a double helix of symmetry. If you count the spirals going clockwise and counterclockwise, you often find numbers from the Fibonacci sequence, 3 and 5, or 5 and 8, or 8 and 13. This pattern arises from the way new scales or fruitlets are added at the growing tip, each one positioned at an angle that maximizes packing efficiency. The result is a structure that is both strong and space efficient, a solution to the problem of how to arrange many small parts on a curved surface. Sunflower heads show the same Fibonacci spirals, with seeds arranged in interlocking curves that radiate from the center. The pattern allows the sunflower to pack the maximum number of seeds into the available space, ensuring that each seed has room to develop. The symmetry here is not perfect. Individual seeds vary slightly in size and position, but the overall pattern is remarkably consistent. It is a statistical symmetry, a tendency toward order that emerges from the collective behavior of many growing parts. The human face, though bilaterally symmetrical in general, is rarely perfectly symmetrical. One eye may be slightly larger than the other. One side of the mouth may lift more when you smile. These asymmetries are subtle, often invisible unless you compare the 2 halves of a face directly. Yet the brain perceives faces as symmetrical, filling in the gaps and averaging the differences. This perceptual symmetry is part of how we recognize faces, how we read emotions, and how we connect with others. The symmetry is as much in the mind as in the flesh. Studies have shown that people tend to find symmetrical faces more attractive, a preference that may be rooted in biology. Symmetry can be an indicator of health, a genetic quality, of development free from stress or disease. Asymmetries, on the other hand, may signal developmental instability, though the effect is small and the exceptions are many. The preference for symmetry is not absolute, and beauty is influenced by countless other factors. Still, the tendency is there, a quiet bias toward balance that shapes our perceptions in ways we rarely notice. Animals, too, seem to prefer symmetry. Female birds often choose mates with symmetrical plumage, and female insects may favor males with evenly matched wings or antennae. These preferences drive sexual selection, favoring traits that enhance symmetry and penalizing those that disrupt it. Over generations, this selection pressure refines the symmetry of populations, pushing them toward ever more balanced forms. The result is a feedback loop where symmetry begets symmetry, and the natural world becomes a gallery of balanced shapes. Yet perfect symmetry is rare in nature, and perhaps that is part of its appeal. The small deviations, the subtle asymmetries, remind us that living things are not machines, but organisms, shaped by growth, injury, and adaptation. A tree may lean toward the light. A shell may bear the scar of an old predator. A face may show the lines of a life well lived. These imperfections do not diminish the symmetry. They enrich it, adding layers of history and individuality to the underlying pattern. The symmetry of waves on water is a symmetry of motion. When a stone drops into a still pond, ripples spread outward in perfect circles, each crest and trough evenly spaced. The pattern is radial, expanding from the point of impact, and it is also rhythmic, repeating in time as well as space. The symmetry is temporary, lasting only until the waves reach the shore or dissipate into stillness. But while it exists, it is a visible manifestation of energy spreading through a medium. The circles are not drawn, they are performed, a dance of water molecules passing energy from one to the next. Ocean waves, driven by wind, also display symmetry, though it is less obvious. The crests and troughs of deep water waves are evenly spaced, and the motion of the water is symmetrical around the horizontal axis. As waves approach the shore and feel the bottom, this symmetry breaks down. The wave steepens, the crest outpaces the trough, and eventually the wave breaks, collapsing into foam. The symmetry is lost, but only because the wave is transferring its energy to the shore, spending itself in the process. The breaking wave is a transition from order to chaos, a moment where symmetry gives way to turbulence. Sound waves, too, are symmetrical in structure. A pure tone, like the note from a tuning fork, is a sine wave, a smooth oscillation that repeats with perfect regularity. The wave is symmetrical in time, each cycle identical to the last, and this symmetry is what makes the tone sound pure. Complex sounds, like music or speech, are combinations of many sine waves, each with its own frequency and amplitude. The overall pattern may be intricate, but it is built from symmetrical components, waves that rise and fall with mathematical precision. Light waves share this symmetry. A beam of light is an oscillating electromagnetic field, with electric and magnetic components that wave in perpendicular directions. The oscillations are symmetrical, repeating at frequencies that determine the color of the light. Red light oscillates more slowly, blue light more quickly, but both follow the same sinusoidal pattern. When light waves interfere, they can create patterns of bright and dark bands, a phenomenon that depends on the symmetry of the waves adding or canceling each other. These interference patterns are used in everything from measuring distances to creating holograms. The double helix of DNA is a symmetry of complementary pairing. Each strand of the helix is a chain of nucleotides, and each nucleotide on one strand pairs with a specific nucleotide on the other, adenine with thymine, guanine with cytosine. This pairing is symmetrical in the sense that the two strands are mirror images, running in opposite directions. The helix itself is a spiral, a form that repeats as it twists through space. This structure is both stable and accessible, allowing the DNA to be copied and read while remaining protected. The symmetry is functional, a solution to the problem of storing information in a molecule. The symmetry of DNA extends to the way it is packaged. In the nucleus of a cell, DNA is wrapped around proteins called histones, forming structures called nucleosomes. These nucleosomes are arranged like beads on a string, and the string is further coiled and folded into chromosomes. The folding is not random. It follows patterns that allow certain genes to be accessed while keeping others tightly packed. The overall structure is hierarchical, with symmetry at multiple levels, from the pairing of bases to the organization of chromosomes. It is an architecture of information built from repeating units. Proteins, the workhorses of the cell, often display symmetry in their three-dimensional structures. Many proteins are made of multiple subunits, identical copies of the same chain that fit together in symmetrical arrangements. This symmetry simplifies the genetic instructions needed to build the protein and allows the protein to perform its function more efficiently. Enzymes, for example, often have symmetrical active sites where chemical reactions occur. The symmetry ensures that the enzyme can bind its substrate in the correct orientation, facilitating the reaction. Viruses, as mentioned earlier, use symmetry to build their capsids, but the symmetry also plays a role in how the virus infects cells. The symmetrical arrangement of proteins on the capsid surface allows the virus to bind to receptors on the host cell in multiple orientations. Once bound, the virus injects its genetic material into the cell, hijacking the cell's machinery to produce more viruses. The symmetry of the capsid is both a structural solution and a functional tool, enabling the virus to survive outside the cell and invade it when the opportunity arises. The symmetry of a butterfly's wings is not just visual, it is also aerodynamic. The wings must generate lift and thrust in a coordinated manner, and this requires that the two wings be nearly identical in size, shape, and flexibility. Any significant asymmetry would cause the butterfly to veer off course, wasting energy and making it vulnerable to predators. The symmetry is maintained through development, with genes and signaling molecules ensuring that both wings grow according to the same plan. The result is a pair of wings that work together seamlessly, allowing the butterfly to navigate flowers, evade threats, and migrate across continents. Moths, close relatives of butterflies, show the same bilateral wing symmetry, though their patterns are often more subdued. Many moths are active at night, and their wing patterns are adapted for camouflage rather than display. The symmetry is still there, but it serves a different purpose, blending into the background, breaking up the outline of the body, or mimicking the appearance of something inedible. The symmetry is a canvas on which evolution paints survival strategies, each pattern a solution to a specific ecological challenge. The flight of birds depends on symmetry as well. The wings must be balanced, the feathers evenly distributed, the muscles coordinated. A bird with asymmetrical wings would struggle to fly straight, let alone perform the complex maneuvers required for hunting or escaping predators. The symmetry extends to the tail feathers, which act as a rudder, and to the arrangement of flight muscles, which must pull evenly on both sides of the body. Even the bird's skeleton is symmetrical, with bones that are light yet strong, arranged in a pattern that distributes stress evenly during flight. Feathers themselves are studies in symmetry. Each feather has a central shaft, called the rachis, with barbs extending on either side. The barbs branch into smaller barbules, which interlock with hooks, creating a smooth, flexible surface. The symmetry of the feather allows it to bend without breaking, to repel water, and to catch air efficiently. The colors of feathers, whether from pigments or structural effects, are also arranged symmetrically, creating patterns that serve as signals, camouflage, or simply beauty. The symmetry of eggs is a symmetry of curves. Most bird eggs are ovoid, a shape that is stronger than a sphere and less likely to roll away when laid on a flat surface. The curvature is symmetrical around the long axis, and this symmetry distributes the pressure of incubation evenly, preventing the shell from cracking. The shape also allows eggs to fit together efficiently in a nest, maximizing the number of eggs that can be incubated at once. The symmetry is subtle, but it is essential to the survival of the embryo inside. Reptile eggs, whether hard-shelled like those of crocodiles or leathery like those of snakes, also display this ovoid symmetry. The shape is an evolutionary solution to the problem of protecting a developing animal while allowing gas exchange and preventing water loss. The symmetry of the egg is mirrored in the symmetry of the embryo, which develops along a bilateral axis, forming a head at one end and a tail at the other. The egg is both a container and a template, guiding the growth of the creature within. The symmetry of shells, whether from snails, clams, or turtles, reflects the growth patterns of the animals that build them. A snail shell is a spiral, growing outward from a central point, each new layer slightly larger than the last. The spiral is a logarithmic curve, maintaining its shape as it expands. A clam shell, on the other hand, is bilaterally symmetrical, with two halves that mirror each other. The shell grows by adding material to the edges, and the symmetry ensures that the two halves fit together tightly, protecting the soft body inside. Turtle shells are more complex, composed of bony plates covered by keratin scuts. The shell is divided into two parts, the carapace on top and the plastron on the bottom. Both are symmetrical, with plates arranged in mirror image across the midline. The symmetry is not just aesthetic. It provides structural strength, distributing the force of impacts evenly across the shell. The turtle's body is bilaterally symmetrical as well, with legs, head, and tail arranged in pairs or along the central axis. The shell is an extension of the skeleton, a living armor that grows with the animal. The symmetry of fish scales is a symmetry of overlapping layers. Each scale is a small, flexible plate, and the scales are arranged in rows that run along the length of the body. The pattern is bilaterally symmetrical, with scales on the left side mirroring those on the right. This arrangement allows the fish to bend and flex while remaining protected. The scales also reduce drag, their overlapping edges creating a smooth surface that water flows over easily. The symmetry is both protective and hydrodynamic, a solution to the challenges of life in water. The lateral line system in fish is a sensory organ that runs along both sides of the body, detecting vibrations and pressure changes in the water. The system is bilaterally symmetrical, with sensors arranged in rows that mirror each other. This symmetry allows the fish to sense objects and movements on either side, helping it navigate, find prey, and avoid predators. The lateral line is an invisible symmetry, a pattern of nerves and sensors that gives the fish a sense of its surroundings. The symmetry of a frog's body is evident in its limbs, eyes, and internal organs. The hind legs are long and muscular, adapted for jumping, and they are mirror images of each other. The front legs are shorter, used for landing and balance, and they too are symmetrical. The frog's eyes bulge outward, positioned on either side of the head, giving it a wide field of view. The symmetry is not perfect. Like all vertebrates, frogs have asymmetries in their internal organs, but the external form is balanced, allowing the frog to move efficiently and sense its environment from multiple angles. Salamanders and newts, relatives of frogs, also display bilateral symmetry, though their bodies are more elongated. The tail is long and muscular, used for swimming, and it is symmetrical along its length. The legs are short, positioned to the front and back of the body, and they move in coordinated pairs. The symmetry of the salamander's body allows it to transition between water and land, swimming with undulations of the tail and walking with alternating steps of the legs. The symmetry is versatile, adapted to multiple modes of locomotion. The symmetry of a snake's body is a symmetry of repetition. The spine is made of hundreds of vertebrae, each one similar to the next, and the muscles are arranged in segments that run the length of the body. This repetition allows the snake to move in a variety of ways: slithering, sidewinding, swimming, even climbing. The body is bilaterally symmetrical, with muscles on the left and right sides working in opposition to create waves of motion. The symmetry is dynamic, a pattern that changes as the snake moves, yet remains balanced. The scales of a snake are arranged in overlapping rows, creating a flexible armor that protects the body while allowing movement. The pattern is symmetrical, with scales on one side mirroring those on the other. The belly scales are larger and more rectangular, providing traction as the snake moves across surfaces. The symmetry of the scales is both functional and beautiful, a pattern that has been refined over millions of years of evolution. The symmetry of a spider's body is divided into two main parts, the cephalothorax and the abdomen. The cephalothorax is bilaterally symmetrical, with 4 pairs of legs extending from it, each leg a mirror of its partner on the other side. The abdomen is more rounded, less obviously symmetrical, but it too is balanced around the central axis. The spider's eyes are arranged in patterns that vary by species, but they are always symmetrical, with eyes on the left side mirroring those on the right. This symmetry gives the spider a wide field of view, essential for detecting prey and predators. The silk produced by spiders is spun from spinnerets located at the rear of the abdomen. The spinnerets are arranged symmetrically, and they produce different types of silk for different purposes. Strong silk for the structural threads of a web, sticky silk for capturing prey, soft silk for wrapping eggs. The symmetry of the spinnerets allows the spider to control the type and placement of silk with precision, weaving webs that are both functional and geometrically elegant. The symmetry of a bee's body is typical of insects: 3 main segments, 6 legs, 2 antennae, and 4 wings. The body is bilaterally symmetrical, with each part mirrored across the midline. The wings are particularly interesting, with intricate vein patterns that are nearly identical on both sides. These veins provide structural support, allowing the wings to flex without tearing. The symmetry of the wings is essential for flight, ensuring that the bee can generate lift and thrust evenly on both sides. The compound eyes of a bee are made of thousands of tiny lenses, each one capturing a small portion of the visual field. The eyes are symmetrical, positioned on either side of the head, and they give the bee a wide field of view. The bee can see colors that humans cannot, including ultraviolet, and this ability is used to locate flowers. The symmetry of the eyes allows the bee to process visual information from both sides simultaneously, helping it navigate complex environments. The hive built by bees is a structure of remarkable symmetry. The hexagonal cells are arranged in sheets, with each sheet hanging vertically in the hive. The cells are used to store honey, pollen, and eggs, and the hexagonal shape allows them to fit together without gaps. The symmetry of the hive is a collective achievement, built by thousands of bees working together, each one following simple rules that result in a complex, ordered structure. The hive is a living architecture, a testament to the power of symmetry in social organization. The symmetry we have been tracing through wings and crystals, through cells and spirals, extends even further into the quiet architecture of sound and light. When a bell rings in still air, the sound waves travel outward in perfect spheres, expanding symmetrically in all directions from the source. This radial symmetry of sound is invisible but real, a growing sphere of pressure that touches every point at an equal distance at the same moment. The same pattern unfolds when you drop a stone into calm water, and the ripples spread in concentric circles, each ring a mirror of the one before. Symmetry governs the movement of energy through space, organizing vibrations into patterns that feel orderly and calm. Light, too, moves symmetrically through the universe. When a star emits light, that light radiates outward in all directions equally, forming an expanding sphere of photons. If nothing blocks or bends the light, it travels in straight lines, preserving a kind of directional symmetry. When light encounters a smooth surface, it reflects at an angle equal to the angle at which it arrived, a principle called the law of reflection. This symmetry between incoming and outgoing angles is why mirrors create such perfect images, each point on your face matching a point in the reflection. The predictability of light's behavior, governed by symmetry, allows lenses to focus, rainbows to form, and eyes to see. Rainbows themselves are expressions of symmetry, though their beauty often distracts us from their geometry. When sunlight enters a raindrop, it bends, reflects inside the drop, and bends again as it exits. The angles at which different colors emerge are fixed by the physics of light and water. So every raindrop at the correct angle sends red light to your eyes, while drops at slightly different angles send orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. The result is a circular arc of color, centered on the point directly opposite the sun from your perspective. If the Earth did not block the lower half, you would see a full circle, a perfect radial symmetry of refracted light. From an airplane, sometimes you can glimpse the complete ring, a halo of color floating in the mist. Symmetry also shapes the way plants respond to light. Many flowers open and close in response to the sun's position, a behavior called heliotropism. Sunflowers are famous for this, their young heads tracking the sun from east to west during the day, then quietly reorienting eastward overnight. This movement is driven by asymmetric growth on opposite sides of the stem, cells on one side elongating more than the other, bending the plant toward light. But the flower head itself remains radially symmetric, its disc florets and ray florets arranged in concentric spirals. The symmetry of the flower contrasts beautifully with the asymmetric motion of the stem, a dance between stillness and movement, form and function. Cacti, too, display symmetry shaped by light and survival. Many species grow in tall columns with pronounced vertical ribs running from base to tip. These ribs are spaced evenly around the circumference, creating a kind of radial symmetry when viewed from above. The ribs serve several purposes. They allow the cactus to expand and contract as it stores or uses water. They create shaded valleys that reduce water loss, and they increase surface area for photosynthesis without increasing exposure to the harshest midday sun. The symmetry of the ribs is both structural and functional, a solution to the challenges of desert life written in geometry. Even the way trees cast shadows reveals symmetry. When the sun is directly overhead, a tree with a radially symmetric canopy casts a circular shadow on the ground. As the sun moves lower, the shadow stretches into an ellipse, but the distribution of light and dark within that shadow still reflects the branching structure of the tree. Each leaf blocks a small portion of light, creating dappled patterns on the ground. And if you look closely, you can see how the overlapping shadows of symmetrical leaves create repeating motifs, small echoes of the leaf shape scattered across the earth. Water lilies rest on the surface of ponds, their leaves and flowers displaying radial symmetry that seems almost meditative. The leaves, called pads, are nearly circular, with a single slit from the edge to the center where the stem attaches. This radial form allows the leaf to float evenly, distributing its weight across the water surface. The flowers rise above the water on sturdy stems, their petals arranged in concentric whorls, each layer a mirror of the one beneath. Water lilies open in the morning and close at night, their petals folding inward with a symmetry that feels deliberate and calm. The flowers are pollinated by beetles, which are drawn to the warmth and scent the flower produces. Inside, the beetles find shelter and food, and in their wandering, they transfer pollen from one bloom to another, continuing the cycle. Lotus flowers, relatives of water lilies, are revered in many cultures for their beauty and symbolism, but they are also marvels of natural symmetry. The petals radiate from the center in perfect layers, and the seed pod at the heart of the flower is a geometric wonder, dotted with circular holes arranged in a hexagonal pattern. This structure, while visually striking, sometimes triggers discomfort in people sensitive to clustered holes, a phenomenon called trypophobia. But from a botanical perspective, The symmetry of the lotus seed pod is simply efficient, each seed nestled in its own chamber, protected and poised for dispersal. The symmetry of flowers is not arbitrary. It is a language written for pollinators. Bees, for instance, see symmetry and use it to identify flowers. Research has shown that bees are attracted to bilaterally symmetric flowers, perhaps because symmetry signals health and genetic quality. A flower with uneven petals may indicate damage, disease, or poor development, so pollinators often prefer blooms that display clear, balanced patterns. This preference has shaped the evolution of countless flowers, their petals and colors fine-tuned over millions of years to appeal to the eyes of insects. Symmetry, in this context, is a form of communication, a visual promise of nectar and pollen. Butterflies, too, rely on symmetry in their interactions with flowers. When a butterfly lands on a blossom, it uses its bilateral body symmetry to balance on the petals, its 6 legs gripping evenly, its proboscis uncoiling to reach the nectar hidden within. The flower's radial symmetry offers multiple landing platforms, so the butterfly can approach from any direction and still find a stable perch. This mutual symmetry, insect and flower, predator and resource, is a quiet partnership that has persisted for over 100 million years. Symmetry also appears in the way animals move through their environments. Birds in flight often tuck their legs against their bodies, reducing drag and maintaining the streamlined bilateral symmetry that allows efficient movement through air. When a bird soars, its wings spread wide, but even then, each wing mirrors the other, the feathers angled precisely to catch and redirect the wind. Flocks of birds, such as starlings, create even larger patterns of symmetry as they move together in murmurations, swirling clouds of thousands of individuals that shift and flow as one. The flock has no leader, yet the symmetry of their collective movement emerges from simple rules. Stay close to your neighbors, match their speed, avoid collisions. The result is a living sculpture of motion, beautiful and eerily coordinated. Fish schools operate on similar principles. When hundreds or thousands of fish swim together, they form shapes that ripple and pulse with symmetry. Each fish responds to the movements of those nearby, and the entire school behaves almost like a single organism, turning, diving, and splitting around obstacles. This emergent symmetry confuses predators, making it difficult to single out one individual from the swirling mass. The symmetry of the school is not planned or directed. It arises naturally from the interactions of many simple parts, a pattern born from the rules of proximity and motion. Jellyfish, drifting through the ocean, embody radial symmetry in motion. Their bells contract and relax in rhythmic pulses, pushing water downward and propelling the jellyfish forward. The symmetry of the bell ensures that the force is distributed evenly, so the jellyfish moves smoothly rather than tumbling or spinning. Trailing beneath the bell, the tentacles hang in a radial curtain, each one a mirror of the others, ready to sting and capture prey. The jellyfish does not hunt actively. It simply drifts, and the symmetry of its body ensures that no matter which direction it faces, it is equally prepared to encounter food. Coral polyps, the tiny animals that build coral reefs, also display radial symmetry. Each polyp is a small tube with a mouth surrounded by tentacles, usually in multiples of 6. The tentacles wave gently in the current, capturing plankton and particles of organic matter. When thousands of polyps live together in a colony, their combined symmetry creates the larger structures we recognize as coral. Brain coral, for instance, is named for its convoluted surface, which resembles the folds of a human brain, but each valley and ridge is formed by rows of polyps, their radial bodies packed tightly together. The symmetry of the individual is subsumed into the symmetry of the whole, a living architecture built one polyp at a time. Sponges, among the simplest of animals, show a more relaxed form of symmetry. Some species grow in irregular, asymmetric shapes, their bodies molded by the currents and surfaces they attach to. But others, particularly certain glass sponges, grow in beautifully regular forms. Vases, tubes, and lattices with near-perfect radial symmetry. These sponges are built from spicules, tiny needles of silica that lock together to form a skeleton. The arrangement of spicules follows geometric rules, creating structures that are both strong and elegant. When light passes through the translucent body of a glass sponge, it glows softly, the symmetry of the skeleton revealed in delicate detail. Sea urchins, relatives of sea stars, are covered in spines that radiate outward in all directions, a three-dimensional expression of radial symmetry. Beneath the spines, the urchin's shell, called a test, is a marvel of geometric precision. The test is composed of interlocking plates arranged in 10 columns, 5 pairs that run from the top of the urchin to the bottom. Each plate is covered in tiny bumps where spines attach, and the overall pattern is so regular that even a broken urchin shell reveals its symmetry. Inside, the urchin has 5 teeth arranged in a structure called Aristotle's lantern, a complex jaw that scrapes algae from rocks. The five-fold symmetry continues inward, a theme repeated at every scale. Sand dollars, flattened relatives of sea urchins, display the same five-fold symmetry, but in a form adapted for life on sandy ocean floors. The top surface of a sand dollar is marked with a 5-petaled flower pattern, each petal a cluster of tiny holes through which tube feet extend. These tube feet help the sand dollar move and burrow into the sand. When a sand dollar dies and its spines fall away, the bleached test remains, a delicate disc of bone-white calcium carbonate, its symmetry preserved even in death. Beachcombers treasure these tests, drawn to their perfect, calming geometry. Starfish, or sea stars, sometimes regenerate lost arms, and the process reveals the resilience of radial symmetry. If a sea star loses one or more arms to a predator or accident, the remaining tissue begins to rebuild the missing parts. The new arms grow slowly, and for a time, the sea star may look lopsided, its symmetry broken. But eventually, the regenerated arms catch up in size, and the radial symmetry is restored. In some species, a severed arm can even regenerate an entire new sea star, provided it includes a portion of the central disk. This ability to rebuild symmetry from fragments is a quiet testament to the power of biological patterns, the body's insistence on returning to its balanced form. Symmetry also governs the structure of many seeds. The seeds of maples, for instance, are equipped with wings that spin as they fall, a design called a samara. Each seed has a single wing, but the wing is shaped asymmetrically, heavier on one side, which causes the seed to spin as it drops. This spinning slows the descent, allowing the wind to carry the seed farther from the parent tree. The motion is smooth and hypnotic, a spiral descent that combines asymmetry in the seed with rotational symmetry in the motion. The result is dispersal, the spreading of life across the landscape, guided by the gentle mathematics of falling. Dandelion seeds, on the other hand, use radial symmetry to catch the wind. Each seed is attached to a parachute of fine filaments arranged in a circular pattern, a structure called a pappus. When the seed is released, the pappus spreads into a perfect umbrella, and the seed drifts slowly downward, carried by even the slightest breeze. The symmetry of the pappus ensures that the seed remains stable in flight, floating rather than tumbling. This design is so effective that dandelion seeds can travel for miles, colonizing new areas with quiet efficiency. Pinecones, too, display symmetry in their structure. The scales of a pinecone are arranged in 2 sets of spirals, one winding clockwise, the other counterclockwise. If you count the number of spirals in each direction, you will often find Fibonacci numbers 3 and 5, or 5 and 8, or 8 and 13. This spiral symmetry is not unique to pinecones. It appears in sunflowers, pineapples, and many other plants. The pattern arises from the way the plant grows, each new scale or seed forming at a specific angle from the previous one, an angle related to the golden ratio. The result is a packing arrangement that maximizes the number of seeds or scales that can fit into a given space, a solution that is both beautiful and efficient. The golden ratio, approximately 1.618, is a number that appears throughout nature, often in connection with symmetry and spirals. It is the ratio of two quantities such that the ratio of their sum to the larger quantity equals the ratio of the larger quantity to the smaller one. This might sound abstract, but the golden ratio produces shapes and spirals that feel harmonious and balanced. The spiral of a nautilus shell, for instance, approximates a golden spiral, each chamber growing at a rate proportional to the golden ratio. The result is a curve that expands smoothly, maintaining the same shape at every scale, a kind of self-similar symmetry that feels timeless. Galaxies, too, often form spiral arms that echo this pattern. The Milky Way, our home galaxy, has several spiral arms that wind outward from a central bulge. These arms are not solid structures, but regions of higher density, where stars, gas, and dust are more concentrated. The spiral shape arises from the way the galaxy rotates, with different parts moving at different speeds, creating waves of compression that propagate through the disk. The symmetry of the spiral arms is dynamic, constantly shifting and reforming, yet the overall pattern persists over millions of years. When we look at images of distant galaxies, we see the same spiral symmetry repeated again and again, a signature of rotating systems shaped by gravity and motion. Hurricanes and cyclones also form spirals, driven by the rotation of the Earth and the flow of air from high pressure to low pressure. The spiral arms of a hurricane are bands of clouds and rain, wrapped around a central eye where the air is calm and clear. The symmetry of the spiral is a consequence of the Coriolis effect, the apparent deflection of moving air due to Earth's rotation. In the northern hemisphere, hurricanes spin counterclockwise, while in the southern hemisphere, they spin clockwise. This rotational symmetry is consistent and predictable, a large-scale pattern written by the physics of a spinning planet. Even the structure of DNA, the molecule that carries genetic information, is a spiral. The famous double helix is composed of two strands that wind around each other, each strand a mirror image of the other. The symmetry is not perfect. The two strands run in opposite directions, and the bases that pair between them are not identical. But the overall form is balanced and elegant, a twisted ladder that can be copied and read by the cellular machinery. The helix makes DNA compact and stable, allowing meters of genetic material to fit inside the tiny nucleus of a cell. The symmetry of the double helix is one of the most iconic images in science, a shape that represents life itself. Proteins, the workhorses of the cell, also fold into symmetric shapes. Many proteins are composed of multiple subunits, each one identical or nearly identical to the others. These subunits come together to form structures with rotational or mirror symmetry, shapes like rings, barrels, and spheres. Hemoglobin, the protein that carries oxygen in your blood, is made of 4 subunits arranged in a symmetric tetramer. This symmetry allows the protein to function efficiently, each subunit cooperating with the others to bind and release oxygen as needed. The symmetry of proteins is not decorative. It is functional, a design principle that evolution has refined over billions of years. Viruses, too, are often symmetric. Many viruses have capsids, protein shells that enclose their genetic material, built from repeating subunits arranged in geometric patterns. The simplest viruses have icosahedral symmetry, a shape with 20 triangular faces and 12 vertices. This geometry is efficient, using the fewest number of unique protein shapes to enclose the largest volume. The symmetry of the capsid protects the viral genome and helps the virus attach to and enter host cells. Though viruses cause disease, their structure is a testament to the power of symmetry at the molecular scale, a design that is both minimal and effective. Crystals, as we have explored, are built from repeating units arranged in symmetric lattices. But the variety of crystal forms is astonishing. Salt crystals grow as cubes, their faces meeting at right angles. Quartz forms hexagonal prisms, often topped with pointed pyramids. Pyrite, also known as fool's gold, grows in perfect cubes or 12-sided shapes called pyritohedra. Each mineral has a characteristic crystal habit, a preferred shape determined by the arrangement of its atoms. Collectors prize well-formed crystals for their beauty and symmetry, and mineralogists study them to understand the conditions under which they grew. Snowflakes, those delicate ice crystals, form in the atmosphere as water vapor freezes onto a tiny particle of dust or pollen. The symmetry of a snowflake is six-fold, a consequence of the hexagonal arrangement of water molecules in ice. As the snowflake falls through clouds, it encounters varying conditions of temperature and humidity, and these conditions influence how the ice crystal grows. Because all six arms of the snowflake experience nearly the same conditions at the same time, they grow in similar ways, creating a symmetric pattern. But because the conditions are constantly changing, each snowflake develops a unique combination of branches, ridges, and plates. The result is symmetry within diversity, a balance between order and variation. The study of snowflakes was pioneered by Wilson Bentley, a farmer from Vermont who spent decades photographing snowflakes under a microscope. He captured over 5,000 images, each one revealing the intricate symmetry of ice crystals. Bentley's work showed that while no two snowflakes are exactly alike, they all share the same underlying six-fold symmetry. His photographs are still admired today, not only for their scientific value, but for their quiet beauty, each snowflake a small work of art created by the laws of physics. Ice itself, when it forms slowly, can create symmetric patterns on windows and other surfaces. These patterns, called frost flowers or fern frost, grow as water vapor in the air freezes on a cold glass. The ice crystals branch and spread, following the same principles that shape snowflakes. The result is a delicate tracery of ice, feathery and intricate, covering the window in a temporary work of art. As the sun rises and warms the glass, the frost melts away. But for a brief time, the symmetry of frozen water transforms an ordinary window into something magical. Bubbles, those fragile spheres of soap and air, are perfect examples of minimal surfaces and symmetry. A single bubble is a sphere because a sphere has the smallest surface area for a given volume, and the soap film naturally contracts to minimize its area. The sphere is perfectly symmetric, every point on its surface equidistant from the center. When bubbles touch, they form more complex shapes, but even these follow strict geometric rules. Two bubbles share a flat or curved wall between them, and three bubbles meet along a line at angles of exactly 120 degrees. These rules, discovered by the Belgian physicist Joseph Plateau, govern the structure of foams and froths, from the bubbles in your bath to the froth on a cappuccino. Honeycombs, built by bees from wax, are arrays of hexagonal cells packed together with no gaps. The hexagon is the most efficient shape for tiling a flat surface, using the least amount of material to enclose the most space. Bees do not consciously calculate this. The hexagonal pattern emerges naturally from the way they build and shape the wax. Each cell is used to store honey or house a developing larva, and the symmetry of the honeycomb ensures that the structure is strong and space efficient. The walls of the cells are thin, just fractions of a millimeter, yet the honeycomb can support many times its own weight. This combination of symmetry, strength, and efficiency has inspired architects and engineers who study honeycombs to design lightweight structures for aircraft, buildings, and more. Spider webs, though not always symmetric, often display radial patterns. Orb-weaving spiders construct webs with a central hub and radiating spokes, connected by a spiral of sticky silk. The radial symmetry of the spokes provides structural support, while the spiral captures prey. The spider sits at the center of the web, or nearby on a signal thread, waiting for vibrations that indicate a trapped insect. When prey is caught, the spider rushes out, wraps it in silk, and carries it back to the hub to feed. The web is both a trap and a sensory organ, its symmetry allowing the spider to detect and respond to disturbances from any direction. Some spiders create even more elaborate symmetric patterns. The stabilimentum, a band of dense silk that some orb weavers add to their webs, often forms a cross or zigzag pattern with bilateral or radial symmetry. The purpose of the stabilimentum is debated. It may attract prey, deter predators, or help the spider camouflage itself. Whatever its function, the stabilimentum adds a striking visual element to the web, a bold statement of symmetry that catches the eye. Radiolarians, microscopic marine organisms, build intricate skeletons from silica, and their forms are among the most beautiful examples of radial symmetry in nature. Each radiolarian species has a unique skeletal structure, often resembling a delicate sphere, star, or lattice. The skeletons are perforated with holes arranged in symmetric patterns, allowing the organism's cytoplasm to extend outward and capture food. When radiolarians die, their skeletons sink to the ocean floor, accumulating over millions of years to form layers of sediment. These sediments, called radiolarian ooze, are a record of life in the ancient oceans, each tiny skeleton a testament to the enduring power of symmetry. Diatoms, single-celled algae, also build symmetric shells from silica. Each diatom is enclosed in a two-part shell called a frustule, and the two halves fit together like a box and its lid. The frustule is covered with intricate patterns of pores, ridges, and spines, arranged with bilateral or radial symmetry. These patterns are so precise and beautiful that diatoms have been used as test objects for microscopes, their fine details revealing the quality of the lens. Diatoms are abundant in oceans, lakes, and rivers, and they play a crucial role in the global carbon cycle, producing a significant fraction of the world's oxygen through photosynthesis. Their symmetry is not just beautiful, it is part of the machinery of life on Earth. Foraminifera, another group of marine microorganisms, build shells from calcium carbonate, and their forms display a variety of symmetries. Some forms are simple spheres, others are spirals, and still others are branching or clustered. The spiral forms, in particular, show a kind of logarithmic symmetry, each new chamber added in a pattern that maintains the same proportions as the shell grows. Forms are found in sediments all over the world, and their shells are used by geologists to date rock layers and reconstruct ancient climates. The symmetry of their shells is a record of growth, a diary written in calcium and time. Pollen grains, the tiny carriers of plant genetic material, come in an astonishing variety of shapes, many of them symmetric. Some pollen grains are spheres, others are ellipsoids, and still others have elaborate spines, ridges, or pores arranged in symmetric patterns. The shape and symmetry of pollen are specific to each plant species, so much so that scientists can identify plants by examining their pollen under a microscope. This field, called palynology, is used in archaeology, forensics, and climate science. The symmetry of pollen is both functional, aiding in dispersal and attachment, and diagnostic, a fingerprint of the plant that produced it. The symmetry of cells themselves is a subject of fascination. Most animal cells are roughly spherical when floating freely, a shape that minimizes surface area and is symmetric in all directions. But when cells are part of a tissue, they take on shapes dictated by their neighbors and their function. Epithelial cells, which line surfaces and cavities, often pack together in hexagonal arrays, much like a honeycomb. This packing is efficient and strong, allowing the tissue to form a continuous barrier. The symmetry of the cellular array is a kind of emergent property, arising from the physical forces that push and pull on each cell. Plant cells, surrounded by rigid cell walls, often have more angular shapes. In the stems and leaves of plants, cells are arranged in regular patterns, their walls meeting at precise angles. Cross-sections of plant stems reveal concentric rings of tissue, each ring composed of cells with specific functions: xylem for water transport, phloem for nutrient transport, and cambium for growth. The radial symmetry of these rings is a blueprint for the plant structure, a pattern that repeats from the root to the tip. Tree rings, visible in the cross-section of a trunk, are perhaps the most famous example of radial symmetry in plants. Each ring represents a year of growth, with a light band form in spring and a dark band in late summer. The rings are concentric circles, centered on the pith at the heart of the tree. By counting the rings, you can determine the age of the tree, and by measuring their width, you can infer the climate conditions of past years. Wide rings indicate good growing conditions, with plenty of water and warmth, while narrow rings suggest drought or stress. Tree rings are archives of environmental history, their symmetry encoding decades or even centuries of information. The symmetry of tree rings is not always perfect. If a tree grows on a slope or is exposed to prevailing winds, the rings may be thicker on one side than the other, a phenomenon called reaction wood. This asymmetry is the tree's response to mechanical stress, reinforcing the side that bears the most weight or resists the most force. Even in this deviation from symmetry, there's a kind of logic, a functional adjustment that allows the tree to survive and grow in challenging conditions. The branching patterns of trees, as we have seen, follow fractal symmetry, but the overall shape of a tree's canopy can also display a kind of rough radial symmetry. Trees that grow in open spaces, with no competition for light, often develop rounded crowns, their branches spreading evenly in all directions. This radial symmetry maximizes the tree's exposure to sunlight, allowing it to photosynthesize efficiently. Trees in forests, by contrast, may grow tall and narrow, their branches reaching upward toward gaps in the canopy. The symmetry of the tree is shaped by its environment, a balance between genetic instructions and the demands of survival. The roots of trees also branch in fractal patterns, mirroring the structure of the branches above ground. This symmetry between roots and crown is not exact, but it reflects a similar strategy: to explore as much space as possible, to gather resources efficiently. The roots spread outward and downward, anchoring the tree and absorbing water and nutrients from the soil. The branching symmetry of the roots is hidden from view, but it is just as intricate and essential as the branches we see. Mycorrhizal fungi, which form partnerships with tree roots, extend the reach of the root system even further. The fungal hyphae, thread-like filaments, branch and spread through the soil in networks that can span acres. These networks are sometimes called the wood wide web because they connect multiple trees and allow them to share resources and information. The branching of the fungal network follows the same fractal principles as tree roots, a repeating pattern of division and exploration. The symmetry of the network is functional, maximizing the surface area available for nutrient absorption and creating a resilient, interconnected system. Lichens, partnerships between fungi and algae or cyanobacteria, often grow in symmetric forms. Crustose lichens spread across rocks in circular patches, expanding outward from a central point. Foliose lichens have leaf-like lobes that radiate from the center, creating a rosette pattern. Fructose lichens grow upright or hang in branching strands, their symmetry more subtle but still present in the repeating structure of the branches. Lichens are slow-growing and long-lived, some colonies persisting for hundreds or even thousands of years. Their symmetry is a record of patient, incremental growth, a quiet persistence in harsh environments. The symmetry of lichen growth can be used to estimate the age of surfaces. By measuring the size of lichen colonies on rocks or gravestones, scientists can infer how long the surface has been exposed. This technique, called lichenometry, is used in archaeology and geology to date landslides, glacial retreat, and other events. The circular symmetry of the lichen colony, growing steadily outward, becomes a kind of natural clock, marking the passage of time. Moss, too, grows in patterns that often display radial symmetry. A single moss plant is small, but mosses grow in dense colonies that form cushions or mats. When a spore lands on a suitable surface and germinates, the moss begins to grow outward in all directions, creating a circular patch. Over time, the patch expands, and if conditions are right, it may merge with neighboring patches to form a continuous carpet. The symmetry of the moss colony is a consequence of uniform growth, each part of the colony extending at the same rate, guided by the availability of light and moisture. Ferns, ancient plants that reproduce via spores rather than seeds, display bilateral symmetry in their fronds. Each frond is a compound leaf, with many small leaflets arranged along a central axis. The leaflets, called pinnae, are often symmetric themselves, their edges smooth or toothed in mirror image patterns. On the underside of the pinnae, clusters of spore cases, called sori, are arranged in symmetric rows or dots. When the spores are mature, the cases split open and release them into the air, where they can drift to new locations and begin the cycle again. The symmetry of the fern frond is both elegant and efficient, a design that has persisted for over 300 million years. Horsetails, relatives of ferns, grow in jointed stems with whorls of branches radiating from each joint. The radial symmetry of the branches gives horsetails a distinctive, almost geometric appearance. The stems are hollow and ridged, reinforced with silica, which makes them stiff and abrasive. In the past, horsetails were used to scour pots and polish wood, earning them the nickname scouring rush. Today, they are appreciated more for their beauty and their ancient lineage, a living link to the coal forests of the Carboniferous period. Cycads, another ancient group of plants, resemble palms but are more closely related to conifers. They grow in rosettes with a crown of long, feathery leaves radiating from a central trunk. The radial symmetry of the crown is striking, each leaf arching outward in a graceful curve. Cycads produce cones for reproduction, and the cones are often large and symmetric, with scales arranged in spirals. Some cycads have separate male and female plants, and the cones can be enormous, weighing up to 40 kilograms. The symmetry of the cycad, from its leaves to its cones, is a reminder of the diversity of plant forms and the many ways that symmetry can be expressed. Palms, true palms, also grow in rosettes, their fronds spreading from the top of a single trunk. The fronds are often pinnate, with leaflets arranged along a central rachis, or palmate, with leaflets radiating from a single point like the fingers of a hand. Both forms display symmetry, and both are adapted to different environments and functions. Palms are iconic plants of tropical and subtropical regions. Their symmetry is a symbol of warmth and abundance. Bamboo, a type of grass, grows in tall, straight culms with regularly spaced nodes. At each node, a branch may emerge, and the branches often grow in a symmetric pattern around the culm. Some bamboo species grow in dense, symmetric clumps, while others spread via underground rhizomes, sending up new culms in a more scattered pattern. Bamboo is one of the fastest growing plants on Earth, some species growing over a meter per day. This rapid growth is fueled by the plant's efficient vascular system and its ability to quickly expand cells that were pre-formed in the rhizome. The symmetry of the bamboo culm, with its repeating nodes and internodes, is a testament to the plant's streamlined growth strategy. Grasses in general, though often overlooked, display subtle symmetries. The leaves of grasses are long and narrow, with parallel veins running from base to tip. The flowers, though small and inconspicuous, are arranged in symmetric clusters called spikelets. Each spikelet contains one or more florets, and the florets are enclosed by bracts arranged in 2 rows. The symmetry of the grass flower is adapted for wind pollination, the lightweight pollen easily carried from plant to plant by the breeze. Grasses cover vast areas of the Earth's surface, from prairies to savannas to lawns, and their understated symmetry is a fundamental part of many ecosystems. Wheat, rice, and corn, the staple crops that feed much of humanity, are all grasses, and their flowers and seeds display the same symmetric structures as their wild relatives. The ear of corn, for instance, is a dense spike of kernels arranged in rows, each row a line of seeds that developed from a symmetric array of flowers. The rows are usually even in number, often 16 or 18, a consequence of the way the flowers are arranged on the cob. The symmetry of the corn ear is not just aesthetically pleasing. It reflects the plant's efficient use of space and resources. The symmetry of seeds and fruits is often related to the flowers that produce them. Apples and pears, which develop from flowers with 5 petals, have a 5-fold symmetry inside. If you cut an apple in half horizontally, through the equator, you will see a star pattern formed by the seed chambers, each chamber a remnant of the flower structure. The symmetry of the apple is a map of its origin, a memory of the blossom that preceded the fruit. Citrus fruits, like oranges and lemons, are divided into segments, each segment a separate carpel from the original flower. The segments are arranged radially around the central axis of the fruit, creating a natural symmetry. When you peel an orange and separate the segments, you are following the lines of symmetry that the plant built into the fruit. This segmentation makes the fruit easy to share and eat, a design that has contributed to the popularity of citrus around the world. Pomegranates, with their jewel-like seeds, also display a kind of radial symmetry. The seeds, called arils, are packed inside the fruit in chambers separated by bitter white membranes. The arrangement is not perfectly regular, but there is a sense of order, a repeating pattern of chambers and seeds. The pomegranate has been cultivated for thousands of years, prized for its flavor and its symbolism, and its internal symmetry has inspired art and literature across many cultures. Figs are another ancient fruit, and their structure is unique. A fig is not a single fruit, but a cluster of many tiny flowers enclosed inside a fleshy structure called a syconium. The flowers line the inside of the syconium, and they are pollinated by tiny wasps that enter through a small opening at the tip. The symmetry of the fig is internal and hidden, a secret garden of flowers that develop into seeds and pulp. When you eat a fig, you are consuming the remains of dozens of flowers, their symmetry transformed into sweetness. Berries, in the botanical sense, are fruits that develop from a single ovary and contain multiple seeds. Grapes, tomatoes, and blueberries are all berries, and they often display radial symmetry when cut open. The seeds are distributed throughout the flesh, and the overall shape is round or oval, symmetric in multiple planes. The symmetry of berries is simple and satisfying, a form that is easy to grow, harvest, and eat. Nuts, which are dry fruits with hard shells, also display symmetry. Acorns, the nuts of oak trees, are oval with a cap at one end, a form that is bilaterally symmetric. Hazelnuts are nearly spherical, symmetric in all directions. Walnuts have a convoluted shell that, when cracked open, reveals two halves that are mirror images of each other. Inside, the walnut kernel is divided into lobes that resemble the folds of a brain, a comparison that has led to various folk beliefs about walnuts and health. The symmetry of the walnut, both shell and kernel, is a result of the way the seed develops, each part unfolding according to genetic instructions. Coconuts, the seeds of coconut palms, are among the largest seeds in the plant kingdom, and they display a kind of radial symmetry. The hard shell has 3 eyes, or pores, arranged in a triangle at one end. These pores are the germination points, where the embryo will emerge if the coconut lands in a suitable location. The coconut symmetry is functional, the 3 pores providing backup options for germination, increasing the chances that the seed will successfully sprout. The symmetry of seeds and fruits is ultimately about reproduction, about spreading life to new places. The shapes, patterns, and structures we see are solutions to the challenges of dispersal, protection, and germination. Symmetry, in this context, is not decoration but design, a set of principles that evolution has refined over hundreds of millions of years. Each seed, each fruit, is a small package of potential, its symmetry a promise of growth and renewal. The symmetry found in the arrangement of seeds within a pomegranate reveals another layer of nature's orderly beauty. Each seed sits within its own translucent chamber, and the chambers arrange themselves in rough radial patterns around the fruit center. The walls between chambers follow lines that radiate outward, dividing the interior into sections like the spokes of a wheel. This radial organization maximizes the number of seeds the fruit can hold while maintaining structural integrity. The pomegranate's architecture balances efficiency with strength, and each time you open one, you witness geometry shaped by millions of years of plant evolution. The seeds themselves, jewel-like and glistening, reflect light in patterns that attract animals to disperse them. Symmetry here serves both structure and survival, quietly woven into the fruit's very flesh. The symmetry of a nautilus shell extends beyond its spiral exterior into the internal chambers that define its growth. As the nautilus matures, it builds new chambers in a logarithmic spiral, each one slightly larger than the last, following a precise mathematical relationship. The creature lives in the outermost chamber and seals off the older ones behind it, filling them with gas to control buoyancy. The walls between chambers curve in smooth, symmetrical arcs, and the entire structure maintains perfect balance as the animal grows. This spiral symmetry allows the nautilus to expand its home without changing its shape, a solution to growth that has remained unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. The shell's beauty lies not just in its appearance, but in the quiet logic of its construction, a living record of mathematical growth. The bilateral symmetry of a dragonfly's wings allows it to perform aerial maneuvers with astonishing precision. Each wing is a delicate lattice of veins arranged in a pattern that balances strength and flexibility. The veins radiate from the base of the wing and branch into smaller divisions, creating a network that supports the thin membrane while allowing it to flex during flight. The left and right pairs of wings mirror each other, enabling the dragonfly to hover, dart forward, or reverse direction with equal ease. This symmetry extends to the muscles that control the wings, which fire in coordinated patterns to produce lift and thrust. The dragonfly's body, too, is bilaterally symmetrical, streamlined and balanced to minimize drag as it cuts through the air. Watching a dragonfly hover above still water, you witness symmetry in motion, a living demonstration of how balance enables agility. The radial symmetry of a sea anemone's tentacles creates a living trap for passing prey. The tentacles arrange themselves in concentric rings around the anemone's mouth, each one armed with specialized cells called cnidocytes that deliver stinging toxins. This radial layout ensures that no matter which direction a small fish or shrimp approaches, it will encounter tentacles. The symmetry is not merely decorative. It is a functional adaptation that maximizes the anemone's ability to capture food in an environment where currents move unpredictably. The tentacles sway gently in the water, their movements synchronized and graceful, and their radial arrangement gives the anemone the appearance of a living flower. This quiet symmetry has allowed sea anemones to thrive in oceans for over 500 million years, anchored to rocks and reefs, patiently waiting for the sea to deliver their next meal. The symmetry of a spider's body plan reflects its evolutionary history and ecological role. Most spiders possess bilateral symmetry, with 8 legs arranged in 4 pairs on either side of the body. The legs themselves are segmented and jointed, each segment mirroring its counterpart on the opposite side. This symmetry allows spiders to move with coordinated precision, whether stalking prey, weaving webs, or retreating to safety. The spider's 2 main body sections, the cephalothorax and abdomen, are also symmetrically organized, housing vital organs in balanced compartments. The eyes, often arranged in symmetrical patterns on the head, provide the spider with a wide field of vision. Even the spinnerets at the abdomen's tip, which produce silk, are arranged symmetrically to distribute the silk evenly as the spider weaves. This careful balance of form and function enables spiders to occupy nearly every terrestrial habitat on Earth, from rainforests to deserts, each species a quiet testament to the power of symmetrical design. The symmetry of a peacock's tail feathers creates one of nature's most stunning visual displays. Each feather bears an eye spot, a circular pattern of iridescent colors arranged in concentric rings. These eye spots are bilaterally symmetrical within each feather, and the feathers themselves fan out in a radial arrangement when the peacock displays. The colors shift as the viewing angle changes, a result of microscopic structures in the feather barbs that interfere with light waves. This structural coloration, combined with the symmetry of the eye spots, creates a shimmering, hypnotic effect that plays a role in mate selection. The peacock's display is a living example of how symmetry and physics combine to produce beauty. The bird raises and vibrates its tail, and the symmetrical patterns dance in the light, a performance refined over countless generations. Symmetry here is not just structure, it is communication, a visual language written in feathers and light. The bilateral symmetry of a dolphin's body is perfectly adapted for life in the water. The dolphin's streamlined form reduces drag as it swims, and its left and right sides mirror each other to maintain hydrodynamic balance. The flippers, which evolved from the forelimbs of terrestrial ancestors, are symmetrically shaped and positioned to provide steering and stability. The dorsal fin, though singular, sits along the body's midline, preserving the overall bilateral symmetry. Internally, the dolphin's skeleton, muscles, and organs are arranged symmetrically, allowing for coordinated, powerful swimming motions. The dolphin's skull, however, shows a fascinating asymmetry in the structures associated with echolocation, a reminder that evolution sometimes favors function over perfect symmetry. Yet the overall impression of a dolphin gliding through the water is one of grace and balance, a body shaped by millions of years of adaptation to an aquatic world. Symmetry, in this case, is synonymous with efficiency and elegance. The radial symmetry of a sunflower's mature seed head reveals a pattern that has captivated mathematicians and naturalists alike. The seeds arrange themselves in 2 sets of spirals, one curving clockwise and the other counterclockwise. The number of spirals in each direction often corresponds to consecutive numbers in the Fibonacci sequence, such as 34 and 55, or 55 and 89. This arrangement arises naturally from the way new seeds form at the growing tip of the flower, each one positioned at a specific angle relative to the previous seed. The result is a packing pattern that maximizes the number of seeds the flower can produce while maintaining structural integrity. The spirals radiate outward from the center, and the overall effect is one of mesmerizing, orderly beauty. This radial symmetry is not imposed from outside. It emerges from the flower's growth process, a mathematical pattern written into the plant's biology. The symmetry of a butterfly's life cycle mirrors the symmetry of its adult form. The butterfly begins as a bilaterally symmetrical caterpillar, its body segmented and balanced as it crawls and feeds. Inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar's body undergoes a profound transformation, breaking down and reorganizing into the adult butterfly. The emerging butterfly unfolds its wings, and the bilateral symmetry of its larval stage continues into its adult form. The wings, legs, antennae, and body all reflect this left-right balance, a continuity of form across a dramatic metamorphosis. This symmetry persists through life stages, a thread of order connecting the crawling caterpillar to the flying adult. The transformation is one of nature's most astonishing processes, and yet symmetry remains constant, a quiet anchor through profound change. The symmetry found in the arrangement of fish scales provides both protection and flexibility. Scales overlap in regular, repeating patterns, each one shaped and positioned to allow the fish to bend and flex while maintaining a protective barrier. The scales on the left side of the body mirror those on the right, preserving the fish's bilateral symmetry. This arrangement reduces drag and helps the fish move smoothly through the water. The scales themselves often have concentric growth rings, much like tree rings, recording the fish's age and growth history. The iridescent colors of many fish scales result from microscopic structures that reflect and refract light, adding beauty to function. The overlapping pattern of scales is a form of tessellation, a repeating geometric arrangement that covers the fish's body without gaps. This symmetry is both structural and aesthetic, a solution to the challenges of aquatic life that has been refined over hundreds of millions of years. The radial symmetry of a wheel-like diatom shell showcases the artistry of microscopic life. Diatoms are single-celled algae encased in intricate silica shells, and many species exhibit radial symmetry with patterns that resemble mandalas or snowflakes. The shell is divided into two halves that fit together like a petri dish, and each half is adorned with pores, ribs, and spines arranged in symmetrical patterns. These structures serve multiple functions. The pores allow nutrients and waste to pass through, the ribs provide structural support, and the spines may deter predators. The radial symmetry of the shell reflects the diatom's way of life, drifting in open water where threats and opportunities can come from any direction. Under a microscope, these shells reveal a level of detail and beauty that rivals any human-made design. The symmetry is precise, delicate, and functional, a microscopic masterpiece shaped by evolution and physics. The bilateral symmetry of a human hand reflects the broader symmetry of the human body and enables remarkable dexterity. Each hand mirrors the other, with 5 fingers arranged symmetrically around a central axis. The bones, muscles, tendons, and nerves of the hand are organized in patterns that allow for coordinated, precise movements. The opposable thumb, a key feature of human hands, works in concert with the fingers to grasp, manipulate, and create. This symmetry extends to the way the brain controls the hands, with the left hemisphere managing the right hand and the right hemisphere managing the left. The hands are tools of exploration and expression, and their symmetrical design allows for balance and coordination. When you hold your hands together, palms facing, You see the mirror symmetry that defines your body's architecture, a reminder of the ancient patterns that shape human form. The symmetry of a chambered nautilus's spiral shell follows a logarithmic curve that appears throughout nature. This type of spiral grows by a constant factor with each turn, creating a shape that expands outward while maintaining its proportions. The nautilus adds new chambers as it grows, each one slightly larger than the last, and the spiral reflects this incremental growth. The same mathematical pattern appears in galaxies, hurricanes, and the unfurling fronds of ferns, a universal form that emerges from the laws of growth and geometry. The nautilus shell spiral is smooth and continuous, a record of the animal's entire life written in calcium carbonate. Holding a nautilus shell, you hold a physical manifestation of a mathematical principle, a shape that connects the microscopic to the cosmic. The symmetry of the spiral is both beautiful and efficient, a form that nature returns to again and again. The radial symmetry of a jellyfish's bell allows it to pulse through the water with rhythmic grace. The bell contracts and relaxes, pushing water downward and propelling the jellyfish forward. The muscles that control this movement are arranged radially, allowing the jellyfish to move in any direction with equal ease. Trailing beneath the bell, the tentacles hang in symmetrical arrangements, ready to capture prey. The jellyfish's body plan is simple yet effective, a design that has remained largely unchanged for over 500 million years. The translucent bell and flowing tentacles create an image of ethereal beauty, and the radial symmetry gives the jellyfish a sense of completeness and balance. Watching a jellyfish drift through the water, you witness a living embodiment of symmetry and motion, a creature whose form is perfectly suited to its environment. The symmetry of a fern's fronds unfolds in a pattern called circinate vernation, where the young frond curls in a tight spiral and gradually unrolls as it grows. This spiral, often called a fiddlehead, protects the delicate growing tip as the frond develops. As the frond unfurls, it reveals a bilaterally symmetrical structure with leaflets arranged in pairs along a central axis. Each leaflet may itself be divided into smaller leaflets, creating a fractal-like pattern of repeated symmetry at multiple scales. The veins within each leaflet branch in symmetrical patterns, distributing water and nutrients evenly. The overall effect is one of elegant order, a plant structure that balances complexity with clarity. Ferns have been growing in this symmetrical pattern for hundreds of millions of years, long before flowering plants appeared, and their ancient design continues to thrive in forests and gardens around the world. The bilateral symmetry of a shark's body is a masterpiece of hydrodynamic design. The shark's streamlined form reduces drag, and its left and right sides mirror each other to maintain balance as it swims. The pectoral fins, positioned symmetrically on either side of the body, provide lift and steering. The dorsal fin, though singular, sits along the midline, preserving the overall symmetry. The shark's tail, or caudal fin, is asymmetrical in many species, with the upper lobe larger than the lower, but this asymmetry serves a specific function, generating thrust and lift. Internally, the shark skeleton, made of cartilage rather than bone, is arranged symmetrically, providing structure without the weight of a bony skeleton. The shark's sensory systems, including its lateral line and electroreceptors, are also bilaterally organized, allowing it to detect prey and navigate with precision. The shark symmetry is a testament to the power of evolution to shape form in response to the demands of the environment. The radial symmetry of a virus particle, or virion, reflects the constraints of its microscopic scale. Many viruses are icosahedral in shape, a form with 20 triangular faces arranged in perfect radial symmetry. This geometry allows the virus to enclose its genetic material in a protective protein shell using the minimum number of building blocks. The proteins that make up the shell, called capsomers, are arranged in symmetrical patterns that repeat around the virus's surface. This symmetry is not a matter of aesthetics. It is a solution to the problem of building a stable, efficient container at the nanometer scale. The icosahedral shape is one of the most stable geometric forms, able to withstand the stresses of the environment while protecting the virus's genetic payload. Under an electron microscope, these viral particles reveal a level of symmetry and precision that rivals the most carefully engineered human structures, a reminder that symmetry operates at every scale of life. The symmetry of a spider's web is a marvel of engineering and artistry. Orb-weaving spiders construct webs with radial symmetry, spinning threads that radiate from a central hub like the spokes of a wheel. Connecting these radial threads are spiral threads, which the spider lays down in a continuous, expanding curve. The result is a structure that is both strong and flexible, able to absorb the impact of flying insects without breaking. The radial threads bear most of the structural load, while the spiral threads are coated with sticky droplets to trap prey. The web symmetry is not perfect. Spiders often adjust the spacing and tension of threads in response to environmental conditions, but the overall pattern is one of balanced, radial order. The spider sits at the center of the web, feeling for vibrations that signal a catch, and the web's symmetry ensures that signals from any direction reach the spider with equal clarity. This elegant structure, woven from silk and instinct, is rebuilt nightly by many species, a quiet testament to the power of symmetry in nature. The bilateral symmetry of a bird's wings enables the miracle of flight. Each wing is a complex structure of bones, muscles, and feathers, and the left wing mirrors the right in both form and function. The feathers are arranged in overlapping layers, each one shaped and positioned to create an airfoil that generates lift. The primary feathers at the wingtip provide thrust, while the secondary feathers along the inner wing provide lift. The bird's flight muscles, attached to a large, keeled breastbone, contract in coordinated patterns to power the wing beats. The symmetry of the wings ensures that the forces of lift and thrust are balanced, allowing the bird to fly in a straight line, turn, or hover. Even the bird's tail feathers, arranged symmetrically, act as a rudder and brake. The entire system is a masterpiece of biological engineering, and the bilateral symmetry of the wings is essential to its function. Watching a bird soar overhead, you witness symmetry in action, a living demonstration of how balance and order enable freedom of movement. The radial symmetry of a sea urchin's test, or shell, is revealed when the spines are removed. The test is composed of interlocking plates arranged in 10 radial sections, 5 of which bear tube feet and 5 of which do not. This pentaradial symmetry is a hallmark of echinoderms, the group that includes sea urchins, sea stars, and sea cucumbers. The plates are made of calcium carbonate and fit together like a mosaic, creating a rigid yet intricate structure. The symmetry of the test reflects the sea urchin's internal organization, with organs and systems arranged radially around a central axis. The mouth, located on the underside, is equipped with a complex chewing apparatus called Aristotle's lantern, which also exhibits radial symmetry. The sea urchin's test is a marvel of natural architecture, a structure that balances strength and lightness, protection and mobility. Holding an empty sea urchin test, you hold a geometric sculpture shaped by millions of years of evolution, a reminder that symmetry is written into the very bones of the ocean. The symmetry of a pinecone's spiral pattern follows the same mathematical principles as the sunflower seed head. The scales of the pinecone arrange themselves in 2 sets of spirals, one turning clockwise and the other counterclockwise, and the number of spirals in each direction often corresponds to Fibonacci numbers. This arrangement arises from the way the cone grows, with new scales forming at specific angles relative to the previous ones. The result is a packing pattern that maximizes the number of seeds the cone can hold while maintaining structural integrity. The spirals are visible even in closed cones, and they become more apparent as the cone dries and the scales open to release the seeds. This spiral symmetry is a form of phyllotaxis, the study of how leaves, seeds, and other plant structures arrange themselves in space. The pinecones pattern is both beautiful and functional, a solution to the problem of efficient packing that has been refined over millions of years of conifer evolution. The bilateral symmetry of a horse's body reflects its evolutionary history as a running animal. The horse's legs, positioned symmetrically on either side of the body, are long and powerful, adapted for speed and endurance. The muscles, bones, and tendons of each leg mirror those of its counterpart, allowing for coordinated, rhythmic gaits. The horse's spine runs along the body's midline, and the ribs extend symmetrically on either side, protecting the internal organs. The horse's head, with its symmetrically placed eyes, ears, and nostrils, is finely tuned to detect predators and navigate its environment. Even the horse's coat patterns, such as the blaze on the face or the socks on the legs, often respect the underlying bilateral symmetry. Watching a horse gallop across a field, you see symmetry in motion, a body shaped by millions of years of evolution to move with power and grace. The symmetry is not just visual, it is functional, enabling the coordinated movements that define the horse's way of life. The radial symmetry of a dandelion seed head creates a delicate sphere of potential life. Each seed is attached to a feathery structure called a pappus, which acts as a parachute, allowing the seed to drift on the wind. The seeds radiate from the center of the seed head in a roughly spherical arrangement, and the pappus structures fan out symmetrically to catch the air. When a breeze blows, the seeds detach and float away, each one carried by the wind to a new location. The dandelion seed dispersal strategy relies on this radial symmetry to maximize the chances that at least some seeds will find suitable ground to germinate. The seed head structure is both beautiful and functional, a living example of how symmetry serves the needs of reproduction and survival. Blowing on a dandelion and watching the seeds scatter, you participate in a process shaped by symmetry and chance, a moment of connection to the quiet logic of plant life. The bilateral symmetry of a butterfly's antennae plays a crucial role in the insect's sensory world. The antennae, positioned symmetrically on either side of the head, are covered with receptors that detect odors, temperature, and air currents. The butterfly uses its antennae to locate flowers, find mates, and navigate its environment. The left and right antennae work together, comparing signals from different directions to determine the source of a scent or the direction of the wind. This bilateral arrangement enhances the butterfly's ability to gather information about its surroundings, much like the way stereo hearing helps animals locate sounds. The antennae themselves are often elaborately shaped, with clubs, feathers, or other structures that increase their surface area and sensitivity. The symmetry of the antennae reflects the broader symmetry of the butterfly's body, a design that balances sensory input from the left and right sides. This quiet symmetry is essential to the butterfly's survival, enabling it to navigate a world of flowers, predators, and mates. The symmetry of a snowflake's growth process creates its unique, intricate form. As the snowflake falls through the atmosphere, it encounters varying conditions of temperature and humidity. These conditions affect how water molecules attach to the growing crystal. And because the 6 arms of the snowflake experience the same conditions at the same time, they grow in similar ways. This creates the snowflake's characteristic 6-fold symmetry, with each arm mirroring the others. Yet because the snowflake's path through the atmosphere is unique, the specific details of its structure are also unique, resulting in the famous saying that no two snowflakes are alike. The symmetry of a snowflake is a balance between order and individuality, a structure shaped by physical laws yet unique in its details. Each snowflake is a tiny, frozen record of its journey through the sky, a crystal sculpture that melts away almost as soon as it lands. The radial symmetry of a lotus flower's seed pod reveals a pattern that has inspired art and architecture for millennia. The pod is flat and circular, with holes arranged in a radial pattern across its surface. Each hole contains a seed, and the seeds are embedded in the pod's spongy tissue. As the pod dries, the seeds loosen and eventually fall out, dispersing to grow into new plants. The radial arrangement of the holes creates a visually striking pattern, one that has been used in traditional designs and modern art alike. The lotus seed pod symmetry is both functional and beautiful, a structure that efficiently holds and disperses seeds while creating a form that humans find aesthetically pleasing. The lotus itself is a symbol of purity and enlightenment in many cultures, and the symmetry of its seed pod adds to its symbolic resonance. This quiet pattern, shaped by the needs of reproduction, connects the biological and the cultural, a reminder that symmetry speaks to something deep in the human experience. The bilateral symmetry of a deer's antlers reflects the animal's overall body plan. Yet each antler is also a unique structure. Antlers grow from the skull and branch into tines, and the left and right antlers generally mirror each other in size and shape. However, variations in nutrition, injury, or genetics can lead to asymmetries, making each set of antlers slightly different. Antlers are shed and regrown each year, and the process of growth follows a symmetrical pattern, with the left and right sides developing in parallel. The antlers serve multiple functions. They are used in combat with rival males, in displays to attract mates, and as symbols of health and fitness. The symmetry of the antlers is part of what makes them impressive. A well-formed, symmetrical set of antlers signals a healthy, strong animal. The antlers' branching structure also resembles the fractal patterns found in trees, a reminder that similar principles of growth and symmetry operate across different forms of life. The radial symmetry of a coral polyp's tentacles creates a living filter that captures food from the water. The polyp, a tiny animal related to jellyfish and sea anemones, extends its tentacles in a ring around its mouth. Each tentacle is armed with stinging cells that immobilize small prey, and the radial arrangement ensures that the polyp can capture food from any direction. The polyp's body is soft and flexible, and it can retract its tentacles into a protective cup when threatened. Many coral polyps live in colonies, and their combined efforts create the massive structures known as coral reefs. The symmetry of each individual polyp is repeated thousands or millions of times across the reef, creating a complex, three-dimensional habitat that supports countless other species. The radial symmetry of the polyp is a simple, elegant solution to the challenge of feeding in a flowing, unpredictable environment, and it has enabled corals to thrive in tropical oceans for hundreds of millions of years. The symmetry of a leaf's veins distributes water and nutrients evenly across the leaf surface. The veins branch from a central midrib, creating a network that resembles the branching of a tree or the tributaries of a river. This branching pattern is often bilaterally symmetrical, with veins on the left side of the leaf mirroring those on the right. The network of veins provides structural support, preventing the leaf from tearing or collapsing, and it also transports water from the roots and sugars produced by photosynthesis. The symmetry of the vein network ensures that every part of the leaf receives the resources it needs to function. In some leaves, the veins form a reticulated pattern, a mesh-like network that provides redundancy. If one vein is damaged, others can take over its function. The leaf's symmetry is a quiet testament to the efficiency of plant design, a structure that balances strength, flexibility, and resource distribution. The bilateral symmetry of a crab's body is adapted for life on the ocean floor. The crab's carapace, or shell, covers the body and is divided into left and right halves that mirror each other. The crab's legs, typically 8 walking legs and 2 claws, are arranged symmetrically, allowing for coordinated movement in any direction. The claws, or chelae, are often asymmetrical in size, with one larger claw used for crushing and a smaller claw used for cutting or manipulating food. This functional asymmetry within an otherwise symmetrical body plan shows how evolution can modify symmetry to serve specific needs. The crab's eyes, mounted on stalks, can move independently, but they are positioned symmetrically on the head. The crab's body plan is ancient, with fossils dating back hundreds of millions of years, and the bilateral symmetry has proven to be a successful design for a wide range of marine and terrestrial environments. The radial symmetry of sand dollars test reveals a pattern that resembles a flower. The test is flat and circular, with 5 petal-like patterns radiating from the center. These patterns mark the locations of the sand dollar's tube feet, which it uses to move and to collect food particles from the sand. The sand dollar is a type of sea urchin that has adapted to life on sandy ocean floors, and its flattened shape and radial symmetry are perfectly suited to this environment. The test is covered with tiny spines that help the sand dollar burrow into the sand and move across the ocean floor. The radial symmetry of the sand dollar is both beautiful and functional, a design that has enabled these animals to thrive in their niche for millions of years. Finding a sand dollar on a beach, you hold a delicate, symmetrical structure that tells a story of adaptation and survival. The symmetry of a bird's feathers extends beyond their arrangement on the body to the structure of each individual feather. A feather has a central shaft, called the rachis, from which barbs extend on either side. The barbs are arranged in a bilaterally symmetrical pattern, creating a flat, flexible surface. Each barb has smaller branches called barbules, which interlock with neighboring barbules using tiny hooks, creating a smooth, continuous surface. This intricate structure allows feathers to be lightweight yet strong, flexible yet capable of holding their shape. The symmetry of the feather's structure is essential to its function, whether for flight, insulation, or display. Feathers are one of the most complex structures produced by vertebrates, and their symmetry reflects the precision of the biological processes that create them. Holding a feather, you hold a masterpiece of natural engineering, a structure that combines beauty and function in perfect balance. The radial symmetry of a wheel-like radiolarian shell showcases the diversity of microscopic life. Radiolarians are single-celled organisms that live in the ocean and construct intricate shells from silica. Many radiolarian shells exhibit radial symmetry, with spines or lattices radiating from a central point. These structures are often geometric and highly ornate, resembling tiny sculptures. The shells serve multiple functions. They provide protection, increase surface area for nutrient absorption, and may help the organism float in the water column. The radial symmetry of the shell reflects the radiolarian's way of life, drifting in open water where resources and threats can come from any direction. Under a microscope, radiolarian shells reveal a stunning diversity of forms, each one a unique expression of radial symmetry. These microscopic structures have been accumulating on the ocean floor for millions of years, forming sediments that record the history of ocean life. The bilateral symmetry of salmon's body enables it to navigate rivers and oceans with remarkable endurance. The salmon's streamlined form reduces drag, and its left and right sides mirror each other to maintain balance as it swims. The salmon's powerful tail, or caudal fin, propels it forward, and the paired pectoral and pelvic fins provide stability and steering. The salmon's life cycle includes epic migrations from freshwater rivers to the ocean and back, and its symmetrical body is adapted for both environments. The fish's muscles are arranged in symmetrical blocks along the body, allowing for the undulating motion that drives it through the water. The salmon's sensory systems, including its lateral line and sense of smell, are bilaterally organized, helping it navigate and find its way back to its natal stream. The salmon's symmetry is a testament to the power of evolution to shape form in response to the challenges of migration and survival. The symmetry of a crystal lattice extends in 3 dimensions, creating structures of remarkable regularity. Crystals form when atoms or molecules arrange themselves in repeating patterns, and the symmetry of the lattice determines the crystal's shape and properties. Some crystals have cubic symmetry, with atoms arranged at the corners of cubes. Others have hexagonal, tetragonal, or more complex symmetries. The symmetry of the lattice is reflected in the external shape of the crystal, with flat faces and sharp edges that meet at specific angles. This internal order gives crystals their unique properties, including how they refract light, conduct heat, and respond to pressure. The study of crystal symmetry, called crystallography, has revealed fundamental principles about the structure of matter and has applications ranging from material science to medicine. The symmetry of a crystal is a visible expression of the invisible order of atoms, a bridge between the microscopic and the macroscopic. The radial symmetry of a sea star's arms allows it to move and feed in any direction. Each arm contains a portion of the sea star's vital organs, including its digestive system and reproductive organs, and the arms are arranged symmetrically around a central disc. The sea star's tube feet, located on the underside of each arm, extend and retract in coordinated waves, allowing the animal to creep along the ocean floor. The sea star's mouth is located on the underside of the central disc, and it can extend its stomach out of its mouth to digest prey externally. The radial symmetry of the sea star is a defining feature of echinoderms, and it reflects a body plan that has been successful for hundreds of millions of years. The sea star's ability to regenerate lost arms is another remarkable feature, and the symmetry of the body plan ensures that regenerated arms match the originals. Watching a sea star move across a tidal pool, you witness radial symmetry in action, a slow, deliberate motion guided by a body plan that has stood the test of time. The symmetry of a spider's eyes varies among species, but many spiders have 8 eyes arranged in symmetrical patterns on the head. The arrangement of the eyes reflects the spider's hunting strategy and habitat. Jumping spiders, for example, have large forward-facing eyes that provide excellent depth perception, flanked by smaller eyes that provide a wide field of view. Web-building spiders often have less acute vision, relying more on vibrations in the web to detect prey. The eyes are positioned symmetrically to provide balanced sensory input, and the brain processes signals from both sides to create a coherent picture of the environment. The symmetry of the eyes is part of the spider's overall bilateral body plan, a design that has enabled spiders to become one of the most diverse and successful groups of predators on Earth. The radial symmetry of a flower's reproductive structures ensures efficient pollination. The stamens, which produce pollen, and the pistil, which receives pollen, are often arranged in radial patterns around the flower's center. This arrangement makes it easy for pollinators, such as bees and butterflies, to access the flower's nectar while simultaneously picking up and depositing pollen. The radial symmetry of the flower is an invitation, a visual and structural signal that guides pollinators to the resources they seek. The flower's petals, sepals, stamens, and pistil all contribute to this symmetrical design, and the overall effect is one of balance and beauty. The flower's symmetry is not just aesthetic. It is functional, a key part of the reproductive strategy that has made flowering plants the most diverse group of plants on Earth. The bilateral symmetry of a whale's body is adapted for life in the open ocean. The whale's streamlined form reduces drag, and its left and right sides mirror each other to maintain balance as it swims. The whale's flippers, which evolved from the forelimbs of terrestrial ancestors, are symmetrically shaped and positioned to provide steering and stability. The whale's tail flukes, though horizontal rather than vertical like a fish's tail, are also symmetrically shaped and move in powerful up and down strokes to propel the whale through the water. Internally, the whale's skeleton, muscles, and organs are arranged symmetrically, allowing for the coordinated movements necessary for swimming, diving, and surfacing. The whale's symmetry is a masterpiece of evolutionary adaptation, a body plan that has enabled these mammals to thrive in the ocean for millions of years. Watching a whale breach, its massive body rising from the water, you witness symmetry and power combined, a living testament to the beauty of balanced design. The symmetry of a honeycomb's hexagonal cells extends across the entire structure, creating a pattern that is both efficient and strong. Bees construct the comb from beeswax, and each cell is a hexagonal prism that shares walls with its neighbors. This tessellation minimizes the amount of wax needed while maximizing the storage space for honey and pollen. The hexagonal shape also provides structural strength, distributing loads evenly across the comb. The bees work collectively to build the comb, and the symmetry of the structure emerges from their coordinated efforts. The honeycomb's pattern is a marvel of natural engineering, a design that has been refined over millions of years of bee evolution. The symmetry of the honeycomb is not just beautiful. It is a solution to the practical challenges of storing food and raising young in a crowded hive. The radial symmetry of a dahlia's bloom creates a dense, intricate display of petals. The petals overlap in spiraling rows, and the overall arrangement is radially symmetrical, with the petals radiating from the flower center. The dahlia's structure is similar to that of other composite flowers, with many small flowers, or florets, clustered together to create the appearance of a single large bloom. Each floret contributes to the radial symmetry, and the overall effect is one of lush, layered beauty. The dahlia symmetry is both visual and functional, attracting pollinators and ensuring successful reproduction. The flower's form is a testament to the power of symmetry to create structures that are both efficient and aesthetically pleasing, a reminder that beauty and function are often intertwined in nature. The bilateral symmetry of an eagle's body is adapted for soaring and hunting. The eagle's wings, positioned symmetrically on either side of the body, are long and broad, providing the lift needed to soar on thermal currents. The eagle's tail feathers, arranged symmetrically, act as a rudder, allowing the bird to steer and adjust its flight path. The eagle's eyes, positioned symmetrically on the head, provide excellent depth perception and allow the bird to spot prey from great distances. The eagle's talons, also symmetrically arranged, are powerful and sharp, adapted for grasping and killing prey. The eagle's symmetry is not just a matter of form. It is a key part of the bird's ability to hunt and survive. Watching an eagle soar overhead, you see symmetry in action, a body shaped by evolution to master the skies. The symmetry of a fern's spore clusters, called sori, often follows the bilateral symmetry of the frond. The sori are arranged in rows along the underside of the leaflets, and their placement reflects the overall symmetry of the frond structure. Each sorus contains many tiny spores, which are released into the air to be carried by the wind to new locations. The symmetry of the sori ensures that spores are distributed evenly across the frond, maximizing the chances that some will find suitable conditions to germinate. The fern's reproductive strategy relies on this symmetry, a quiet pattern that has enabled ferns to reproduce successfully for hundreds of millions of years. The radial symmetry of a Portuguese man-o'-war's tentacles creates a deadly trap for small fish. The man-o'-war is not a single organism, but a colony of specialized individuals called zooids. each performing a specific function. The tentacles, which can extend many meters below the floating body, are arranged radially and are armed with stinging cells that deliver a powerful toxin. The radial arrangement ensures that the man-o-war can capture prey from any direction as it drifts with the currents. The symmetry of the tentacles is part of the colony's collective design, a structure that has enabled the man-o-war to thrive in open ocean environments. The man-o-war's beauty is matched by its danger, a reminder that symmetry in nature often serves survival rather than aesthetics. The bilateral symmetry of a fox's body reflects its role as a predator and its need for agility. The fox's legs, positioned symmetrically on either side of the body, are long and slender, adapted for running and pouncing. The fox's tail, or brush, is bushy and acts as a counterbalance during quick turns and leaps. The fox's ears, positioned symmetrically on the head, can swivel independently to pinpoint the location of sounds, such as the rustling of a mouse under the snow. The fox's symmetry is both functional and graceful, enabling the coordinated movements necessary for hunting and survival. Watching a fox hunt, you see symmetry in motion, a body shaped by evolution to be both beautiful and efficient. The symmetry of a dragonfly's compound eyes provides the insect with an almost panoramic field of vision. Each eye is composed of thousands of tiny lenses, called ommatidia, arranged in a hexagonal pattern. The eyes are positioned symmetrically on either side of the head, and together they cover nearly the entire visual field. This allows the dragonfly to detect movement in almost any direction, a crucial adaptation for an aerial predator. The symmetry of the eyes ensures that the dragonfly receives balanced visual input from both sides, helping it to judge distances and track prey. The dragonfly's vision is one of the most acute in the insect world, and the symmetry of its eyes is a key part of this remarkable sensory system. The radial symmetry of a sea cucumber's body plan is less obvious than in other echinoderms, but it is still present. The sea cucumber's body is elongated, and its mouth is surrounded by tentacles arranged in a radial pattern. The sea cucumber moves along the ocean floor using tube feet arranged in rows along its body, and these rows reflect the underlying radial symmetry. The sea cucumber's body can contract and expand, and its soft, flexible form allows it to squeeze into crevices and burrow into the sand. The radial symmetry of the sea cucumber is adapted to a life of slow movement and bottom feeding, a body plan that has enabled these animals to thrive in a wide range of marine environments. The symmetry of a peacock feather's eye spot is created by the precise arrangement of pigments and microscopic structures. The eye spot is composed of concentric rings of color, and the symmetry of these rings creates a target-like pattern. The colors are produced by a combination of pigments and structural coloration, where microscopic structures in the feather barbs interfere with light waves to produce iridescent hues. The symmetry of the eye spot is both visual and functional, playing a role in mate selection and predator deterrence. The peacock feather is a masterpiece of natural design, a structure that combines symmetry, color, and physics to create one of the most striking patterns in the animal kingdom. The bilateral symmetry of a bat's wings enables it to fly with agility and precision. The bat's wings are formed from a thin membrane of skin stretched between elongated finger bones, and the left and right wings mirror each other in structure and function. The bat's flight muscles, attached to the chest and back, contract in coordinated patterns to power the wing beats. The bat's ears, positioned symmetrically on the head, are highly sensitive and allow the bat to navigate and hunt using echolocation. The bat's symmetry is essential to its ability to fly in the dark, a body plan that has enabled bats to become one of the most diverse and successful groups of mammals. The radial symmetry of a cactus flower attracts pollinators with its bright colors and open structure. The petals, stamens, and pistil are arranged radially, creating a symmetrical display that is easy for bees, birds, and other pollinators to access. The cactus flower often blooms for a short time, and its radial symmetry ensures that it makes the most of this brief window to attract pollinators and achieve fertilization. The symmetry of the flower is a key part of the cactus's reproductive strategy, a design that has been refined over millions of years of evolution in arid environments. The symmetry of a nautilus's eye is a simple yet effective design. The eye is a pinhole camera with a small opening that allows light to enter and form an image on the retina. The eye is positioned symmetrically on either side of the nautilus's head, providing the animal with a wide field of view. The simplicity of the nautilus's eye is a reminder that symmetry and function do not always require complexity. The nautilus's eye has remained largely unchanged for hundreds of millions of years, a design that has proven effective for the animal's way of life. The bilateral symmetry of a human face is one of the first things we notice about each other, and studies suggest that facial symmetry is often associated with perceptions of health and attractiveness. The left and right sides of the face mirror each other, with eyes, ears, nostrils, and the mouth arranged symmetrically. However, perfect facial symmetry is rare. Most faces have subtle asymmetries that give each person a unique appearance. These asymmetries can result from genetics, development, or environmental factors, and they add character and individuality to the face. The symmetry of the human face is a reminder that we, too, are part of the natural world, shaped by the same principles of growth and development that create symmetry in other organisms. The radial symmetry of a water lily's flower creates a floating mandala on the surface of a pond. The petals, arranged in concentric circles, open to reveal the flower's reproductive structures at the center. The radial symmetry of the flower attracts pollinators and ensures that the flower is accessible from any direction. The water lily's leaves, which float on the water's surface, are roughly circular and also exhibit a form of radial symmetry. The plant symmetry is both beautiful and functional, a design that has enabled water lilies to thrive in aquatic environments around the world. The symmetry of a moth's wings is often less vibrant than a butterfly's, but it is no less intricate. The wings are covered with scales arranged in overlapping rows, and the patterns on the wings are bilaterally symmetrical. Many moths have eye spots or other markings that mimic the eyes of larger animals, a defense mechanism that can startle predators. The symmetry of these markings enhances their effectiveness, creating a convincing illusion. The moth's wings are also adapted for nocturnal flight, with structures that absorb sound and make the moth nearly silent as it flies. The symmetry of the moth's wings is a testament to the diversity of solutions that evolution has produced for the challenge of flight. The radial symmetry of a brittle star's arms allows it to move with surprising speed across the ocean floor. The brittle star is related to the sea star, but its arms are long, slender, and highly flexible. The arms are arranged radially around a central disk, and the brittle star moves by coordinating the movements of its arms in a rowing motion. The radial symmetry of the body plan allows the brittle star to move in any direction without turning, a useful adaptation for an animal that lives in complex, three-dimensional environments like coral reefs. The brittle star symmetry is both elegant and functional, a design that has enabled these animals to thrive in oceans around the world. The symmetry of a leaf's shape often reflects the plant's adaptation to its environment. Broad, symmetrical leaves are common in plants that grow in shaded forests, where maximizing surface area for light capture is important. Narrow, symmetrical leaves are common in grasses and other plants that grow in open, windy environments, where reducing wind resistance is advantageous. The symmetry of the leaf is part of the plant's overall strategy for survival, a balance between the need to capture light, conserve water, and withstand environmental stresses. The leaf's symmetry is a quiet testament to the power of evolution to shape form in response to the demands of the environment. The radial symmetry of a sea pen's colony creates a feather-like structure that sways gently in the ocean currents. The sea pen is a colonial organism related to corals and sea anemones, and it consists of a central stalk with many small polyps arranged radially along its length. The polyps filter food from the water, and the radial arrangement ensures that each polyp has access to the surrounding water. The sea pen symmetry is both beautiful and functional, a design that has enabled these animals to thrive on sandy and muddy ocean floors. The sea pen's gentle swaying motion, driven by the currents, adds to its ethereal beauty, a living example of symmetry in motion. The bilateral symmetry of a seal's body is adapted for life in the water and on land. The seal's streamlined form reduces drag as it swims, and its left and right sides mirror each other to maintain balance. The seal's flippers, which evolved from the limbs of terrestrial ancestors, are symmetrically shaped and provide propulsion and steering. On land, the seal moves awkwardly, but in the water, it is graceful and agile, a testament to the power of symmetry to enable efficient movement. The seal's symmetry is a reminder that the same body plan can be adapted to different environments, a flexibility that has enabled seals to thrive in oceans around the world. The symmetry of a crystal geode reveals the hidden order within the earth. A geode is a hollow rock lined with crystals, and the crystals grow inward from the walls of the cavity. The crystals are often arranged in symmetrical patterns, reflecting the underlying symmetry of the crystal lattice. The colors and shapes of the crystals vary depending on the minerals present, but the symmetry is a constant, a visible expression of the invisible order of atoms. Opening a geode is like opening a treasure chest, revealing a hidden world of symmetry and beauty created over thousands or millions of years. The radial symmetry of a Christmas cactus bloom creates a cascade of color during the winter months. The flower's petals, stamens, and pistil are arranged radially, creating a symmetrical display that brightens the short days of winter. The Christmas cactus is native to the forests of Brazil, where it grows as an epiphyte, perched on tree branches. The radial symmetry of its flowers attracts hummingbirds and other pollinators, ensuring successful reproduction. The plant's symmetry is a reminder that even in the depths of winter, nature continues to create beauty and order. The bilateral symmetry of a penguin's body is adapted for swimming in the cold waters of the southern hemisphere. The penguin's wings have evolved into flippers, and the left and right flippers mirror each other to provide propulsion and steering. The penguin's body is streamlined, reducing drag as it swims, and its left and right sides are balanced to maintain stability. On land, the penguin waddles awkwardly, but in the water, it is fast and agile, a testament to the power of symmetry to enable efficient movement. The penguin's symmetry is a key part of its adaptation to life in one of the harshest environments on Earth. The symmetry of a fern's sori, the clusters of spore cases on the underside of the fronds, often follows the bilateral symmetry of the frond itself. The sori are arranged in rows or clusters along the leaflets, and their placement reflects the overall symmetry of the frond structure. Each sorus contains many tiny spores, which are released into the air to be carried by the wind to new locations. The symmetry of the sori ensures that spores are distributed evenly across the frond, maximizing the chances that some will find suitable conditions to germinate. The fern's reproductive strategy relies on this symmetry, a quiet pattern that has enabled ferns to reproduce successfully for hundreds of millions of years. The radial symmetry of a sea lily's arms creates a delicate, flower-like structure that filters food from the water. The sea lily, also called a crinoid, is an ancient echinoderm that attaches to the ocean floor with a stalk. The arms, arranged radially around the central body, are feathery and covered with tiny tube feet that capture plankton and other small particles. The sea lily symmetry is both beautiful and functional, a design that has remained largely unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. Fossil crinoids are common in ancient rock formations, a testament to the success of this radial body plan. The bilateral symmetry of a rabbit's body reflects its role as a prey animal and its need for speed and agility. The rabbit's powerful hind legs, positioned symmetrically, allow it to leap and run with remarkable speed. The rabbit's ears, positioned symmetrically on the head, can swivel independently to detect the sounds of approaching predators. The rabbit's eyes, positioned on the sides of the head, provide a wide field of view, allowing the rabbit to watch for danger while feeding. The rabbit's symmetry is both functional and graceful, enabling the coordinated movements necessary for survival in a world full of predators. The symmetry of a tulip's bloom creates a simple, elegant form that has been celebrated in art and culture for centuries. The tulip's petals are arranged in a radial pattern, creating a cup-like shape that opens to reveal the flower's reproductive structures. The radial symmetry of the flower is both beautiful and functional, attracting pollinators and ensuring successful reproduction. The tulip's symmetry is a reminder that simplicity and beauty often go hand in hand, a design that has made the tulip one of the most beloved flowers in the world. The radial symmetry of a basket star's arms creates a complex, branching structure that resembles a living basket. The basket star is a type of brittle star, and its arms divide repeatedly into smaller and smaller branches, creating a dense, tangled network. The arms are arranged radially around the central body, and the basket star uses them to capture plankton and other